Good evening, Judy.
Hey Ted, how's it going?
Not too bad. Trying to decide what I think of this angle of my camera.
Yeah,
Think
you're
about,
higher than normal.
yeah, well, you never want to do this look.
Oh God,
It's
no.
a terrible look. So
Or you could
it's
do the
better.
edge.
It's
The
better to be, yeah. It's better to be too high, I think. Makes the
hmm
jawline look stronger.
Oh yeah.
I look so red though. I don't know what's up with that.
Huh. Might be your lighting. I don't think you're normally red.
I don't know.
I don't think we're gonna have gym tonight. Just a heads up. And Heather's gonna
Oh,
be a little bit late.
and who's going to be late?
Heather.
Okay.
And Ed might be double teaming with another meeting, so
Oh, well,
not
Melissa's going to be
totally
here.
sure. Yeah, we should be good on quorum, but just
The
a few.
quorum on time to start.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Oh, Jim is joining.
Did you talk to Jim about West Main Street?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, he does think he can make an unbiased decision, but I think based on what we've done in the past, it might be better to recuse himself. So I think Jim, we're talking about you.
And I hope you're saying good things.
Just talking about your abutter status for 30 West
Oh,
Main.
yeah. Well, if we have a quorum, then I won't vote. But again, I think I can be objective. We're not direct abutters, we're indirect abutters. But if there's a quorum, I'll abstain.
So you'll comment but not vote if we have a quorum?
No, I won't comment. I
You
won't
won't
comment at
comment.
all.
Okay.
I won't comment at all. But I'll vote if necessary, and if not necessary, then I won't vote.
Okay.
I wonder if
That sound good?
should you not vote either?
Oh,
Trying to
me?
think what we did. Did Heather, you ran into this, right? When you were in a butter, you didn't vote on, was it me?
I didn't vote.
Hmm.
Yeah, no, I'm okay not voting or abstaining, right?
Yeah.
I'm okay if it works out that way, if we just put off the vote for another meeting.
Well, everybody's,
think I
oh,
would
hi,
rather
Heather.
play it
Heather's
safe
here.
that way.
Yeah, so, I mean, the only thing I know about attendance is Ed is apparently going to the select board meeting yet for 7:50 item. He said he was gonna hold up someplace in town hall and be able to do that and also be in our meeting, so.
Oh, I got to get reappointed too. That reminds me. I got an
Oh,
email.
yeah, okay, right.
Am I allowed to be
Reappointment.
here tonight?
You are,
Yeah,
yeah.
June 30th,
Okay.
June 30th.
I
Yeah.
don't think you're upset.
I think
I'm
I
up.
got an email.
Oh, you did?
According to the list, it was Ed, Jim, and Melissa.
If you
All
go
right,
and
I'll go
just
back
look
and
on
look.
the, hi,
Maybe it was
Melissa. Melissa, welcome back.
Hi, thank you.
maybe
We'll
it
have
was
to
a
catch
Zach
up
email.
sometime.
It was probably Zach.
Maybe that's what it was.
Well, I know I'm up, so what do I gotta do? Go see Connor and swear in or something?
No, they haven't voted yet. They're gonna vote at their
Oh.
next meeting.
Who, the select board?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So do I have to wait for my CPC? Well.
Yeah, that's gonna be on the next agenda. We'll do that.
Okay.
Welcome
So the
back, Melissa.
commission-
Thanks, Ted.
Commission will decide the next one, okay. All right, I found the links.
1, 2, Jim is 3. And then I think I saw Heather. Heather is 4, right?
We have Matt too. I don't think he's on camera yet.
Okay. All right, so it looks like we can start on time in a moment or two.
We don't have HCAM yet.
Yeah, thank you. But I thought once they tell us we're on, we can go. That was unspoken, but it was in my head.
Oh, they're not even in the meeting, I meant. Usually they're one of the first ones in.
All right, well, we'll wait on them.
Hello, Judy, and
Matt, thanks for running things.
um,
I watched the last two meetings today and yesterday. and
Yeah,
everything looked awesome. Yeah, great job.
there was a meeting not too long ago where I think it was Jim that said I sounded like a game show host, and I'm not sure still if that was a compliment or not.
You were made for this. You were made for that.
hi, Judy and Anna. Do you have plans and documents for our project that you're going to put up, or should I be prepared to share, or how you want to do it?
I have your plans. Yep, so I'll
Okay,
have
great.
them shared and you can
Excellent.
walk us through them.
Perfect.
Just waiting on HCAM, I guess then. I see Matt now is here. Ted, Jim, Heather, Matt. And Melissa, so that's 5. We need HCAM.
Yeah, I'd say we're recording, so we can go ahead because we can share the video with HCAM as long as we have a quorum. So I don't know why they're not here, but
All right, so if you
I'd
advise
say go
getting
ahead.
going, I'm happy to get us started. All right, then, we will do this. Here comes the script, everybody. This is the June 17th, 2025 open meeting of the Hopkinton Conservation Commission being conducted remotely consistent with an act extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency. The new law authorizes all members of a public body to continue participating in meetings remotely. The open meeting law's requirement that a quorum of the body and the chair be physically present at the meeting location remains suspended. For this meeting, the Hopkinton Conservation Commission is convening by video conference via Zoom, as posted on the town's web meeting calendar and the Conservation Commission agenda, identifying how the public may join. Additionally, the meeting may be broadcast by HCAM in a little bit through one or many of its channels or platforms. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and that some attendees are participating by video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that others may be able to see you, and take care not to screen share your computer. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. Please also keep yourself on mute unless and until called on by the chair. Supporting materials that have been provided to members of the commission for this meeting are available on the town's website. This meeting will feature public comment. After commission members and staff have discussed each project application on the agenda, the chair will open the discussion to public comment. Members of the public who wish to speak are asked to identify their name and address. 3 minutes will be afforded for each public comment. Each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted via roll call of the members. I will now confirm which commission members are present. Melissa Rakos.
Present. Present.
Jim Cirillo. Jim?
Present, and I gotta say, now you're just showing off, and I'll take door number 1.
Heather Burton.
Present.
Matt Moyen.
Present.
And I am Ted Barker Hook, co-vice chair, and I'll be chairing at least the beginning of this meeting.
Janine LeBlanc, I'm here too.
Oh, Janine, you're here. Great. Janine
I snuck
LeBlanc,
in.
present. Ed Harrow should be coming, but he'll be late. I'll now confirm staff that are present. Judy Day, Hopkinton Conservation Administrator.
Present.
Anna Rogers, Environmental and Inspectional Services Coordinator.
Present.
And Joe Orzel of Lucas Environmental.
Present.
Great. Next up, I want to let everybody know that we have a couple things on the agenda that have been continued. The first is Solon 1993 Trust, 8589 West Main Street. That's been continued to July 1st. And then in the work session items, Pulte Homes, Legacy Farms North, also continued to July 1st. If there's anybody here for those meetings, you are, of course, welcome to stay, but we will not be talking about those agenda items today. With that, I think that we can go into the work session items. Let me just clean up my mess here a little bit. First up is documents for review. We have an enforcement order for 42 North Mill Street. Can you tell us about it, Judy?
Sure. So on May 19th, we received a complaint from a resident in town about tree clearing occurring in close proximity to a river. Drove by and saw tree removal actively taking place at 42 North Mill. Homeowner allowed us onto the property and we witnessed at least 2 trees within riverfront actively being removed. Other pruning activities that did not qualify as a violation and potentially a tree removal that was outside of jurisdiction. There were older stumps and understory that had likely been cleared last fall, but not entirely sure when that happened. But in terms of recent activity, at least 2 trees within riverfront. And as one of the trees hadn't fully come down yet, we did ask the homeowner to snag it since it was still no limbs, but the trunk was still remaining, so that was done. In speaking with the chair and vice chairs, put together an enforcement order for the riverfront tree removal. So looking for a vote to either issue this as is or any comments to adjust it. The ask being on this 3rd page here, submit to the Conservation Office a site plan containing a jurisdictional delineation, location of all cut trees, and a restoration plan for the removals to be received by July 30th, which is the submission deadline for the Commission's August 19th meeting. So very similar wording to past tree removal violations we've had. Happy to answer any questions. I'm not sure that we have the homeowner on the line today as he is traveling.
I am here.
Great.
Can I present myself? How we
Yes,
came to
please
this?
do. Please do.
Okay, so what happened is I moved to Massachusetts in
Could
late
you,
August.
excuse me, John, I assume you're John. It says John on the screen. If you
yes,
could
yes.
just kind of formally introduce yourself.
Okay, my name is John Tudil, 42 North Mill Street. I moved to Massachusetts towards the end of August last year. So I'm new to this area. So going to the series of incidences that happened back in end of April, one of the trees about 40 feet away from the foundation of my house fell into the property, and I think I showed it to Judy and Anne when they came to visit me. The tree had 2 branches, and during the wind, one of the branches broke and fell into the compound and fell about 5 to 10 feet within the foundation. And the tree is about 40 to 45 feet from my house. And so I called the tree removal agency by name. I think I forgot its name. And they came over and we looked at the trees around, and there were 2 other trees in the same category with split trunks that were posing a hazard. So he recommended that I cut them down. So there was also a 3rd tree, but I wasn't sure if it was within my property, so I let it stand. So I asked him if permit was required, and he said no, only cities like Western require it. And so I went to the website, to the warden's website, and in the website it mentioned that the only trees that need permit are shade trees owned by the public, and every private trees at the discretion of the owner. So I went by that, and I cut the tree, 2 trees, and I think Judy was here, and she asked me to keep a 6-foot stump, which I did, and I put all the tree trunks on the ground so that it protects the soil. The thing is, it would have been nice if there was a link from the warden's website that there are other authorities that I might have to check with before I proceeded, and that was missing. I gave a copy of that website to Judy, and Judy said she would follow it up and have this set up so that things like this don't happen again. And number 2, I want to have the 3rd tree also removed because it poses a hazard, and it's swinging during the wind. So that's something I want to follow up after this. That's all I have.
All right, thank you. I guess my first response is it's true, there's different levels of bureaucracy you got to sift through in every town, including Hopkinton. But we do have jurisdiction over trees
and
in the wetland and within wetland buffer zones.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
that's
yeah.
the
I came
snafu
to-
you ran into.
Yeah, I came to recognize this after Judy's visits. I did before
Right.
that. I didn't know.
Right. The other thing I would say is, I don't know who it was that looked at your trees. But generally, if a applicant is looking to remove a tree within our jurisdiction, we like to see a certified arborist telling us about the health of the tree before we approve anything. I don't know if the tree removal folks you had are also certified arborists or just a tree company in town, but you might look into that before requesting kind of formally removal of a tree that might be within the buffer zone.
Okay, will do.
Otherwise, have you been able to look at the enforcement order that Judy put together, or were you able to see it right now on the screen?
No, what is the action I should do?
So I apologize, Judy. It's very small on the screen, and this is not a document I printed for myself for today's. Can you see the screen, John, or are you on?
Yes,
your
I
phone?
can. Yes, I can. Yes.
Okay. So if you read where it says, the property owner shall take the following action, I think you can read it as well as I, so I won't read it out loud. But that paragraph that says submit to the conservation office, why don't you give that a quick read and then let us know if there's anything unclear?
I don't understand what this means. So what am I supposed to do? These are like new words to me.
Judy, can you give a layman's summary of that paragraph, maybe, please?
Yep. So this is what the commission has been requesting for tree removal violations in areas where there is not a confirmed delineation showing exactly where the protected areas are stemming from the river behind your property. So the request is for you to submit a plan containing a delineation prepared by a professional, so a wetland scientist. And that plan should show where the wetland boundary is, where the protected buffer zone is, the location of all cut trees and any removed vegetation. And what accompanies that is a restoration plan. So generally the commission upholds a 2-to-1 ratio for cut trees to proposed replacement trees. So if that's what the commission would like to see in the restoration plan, to come with a proposal for what kind of trees you're going to be replanting, where you're going to put them. And that is expected by July 30th to be discussed at the commission's August 19th meeting.
So the this is going to be a plan of the property to show that indeed it's in the buffer zone.
Yes.
So why don't we just assume it's there? So it you know, reprieves me of the task. I can plant the trees. That's not a problem.
Yeah, I think it's up to the commission if they would like to see the delineation. I think it's, in the case where you're looking for more trees to be removed in the future, might be good to know where that line is. But yeah, that is up to the commission to decide if they want that delineation kept into the enforcement order or just the replacements.
So yeah, so it costs a little bit of money, but I think it's in your best interest to have things documented. For both what we're talking about now and any future requests. But I wonder if
I am not
anybody.
going to cut any more trees. So
Well, you were hoping that maybe a third one could come down, perhaps, right?
Well, if I have to do this one, I will keep it as it is. So I don't want to go through this again. So I'll just plant the trees. That's fine.
Okay, let me ask the commission. Do you have thoughts on requiring the delineation if he is just accepting that everything is within the buffer zone, commission?
That would be acceptable to me. I think that's reasonable.
Yeah.
That's a great question, Peg. I'm okay with it if there is some boundary marker at where he'll stipulate, the regulated areas. You know what I mean?
I
So-
couldn't hear you very well, Jim. Stipulate what?
To not have to do a plan, but if the edge of the property or the edge of the wetland is so obvious, and he'll stipulate that's what it is, then have him put markers up, like we would do if somebody.
PIBs?
Yeah, PIBs.
Yeah.
Markers, PIB, something. Right?
Melissa,
saying?
you unmuted. Do you have a thought, Melissa?
No, I was just gonna agree that I don't know that a plan is necessary if he's just taking down the couple trees and agrees to replant them, but Jim has a good point that we want to establish so that it's a reminder, because obviously we didn't know that we were in a, restricted area.
Okay.
Through the chair.
Yes.
So this property also has a very steep slope going down to Cold Spring Brook. So I think that's part of the, with the height of the slope. So, you can't just run a standard tape measure up because you're not going to get an accurate, where that buffer zone is. So I think that's what part of Judy and my rationale for getting the plan was, to actually really determine, how far the buffer zone extends onto the property.
I like planting trees, so I don't care.
I like, so, John, I keep calling you John. I don't know what your
It's
last
my name, John Todiel. Yeah.
Tordiel. Mr. Tordiel, a PIB is a permanent immovable barrier, and we delineate it with just a little plastic circle that's, I don't know, about the size of a softball in diameter. And we often ask residents to mark the edge of where any work can be done with these. And you
Okay.
can put them on trees, you can put them on fence posts, you can put them on rocks. And
Yeah,
so
yeah.
that's what Jim Cirillo is talking about.
No problem. If I get the supplies where I can get them, I can do them. I can put them on the trees.
I like the idea of it. My only small hesitation is I don't have any idea what your yard looks like and how clearly the tree line marks an edge. Generally, when we talk about these, we have either photos or a plan of the property that allows us
Well,
to.
yeah,
Oh,
this is
maybe this
is the-
helps.
yeah,
We do
yeah.
have photos.
Yes.
So where are the stumps of there's a stump.
So this
And
is
onto
the
the-
slope leading down to the river. Basically, there's maintained lawn at the top of the slope, and then down from there, it's mostly pine forest.
So
So this was the tree that we snagged, and this is the one that was removed that day. And like I said, there were some older stumps that were from, we think earlier in the year, potentially last year.
So often, John, we look for these markers at the edge of the lawn.
Okay. Mm.
Unfortunately, right now, you don't have any trees at the edge of your lawn, which would mean we'd look for some kind of 4x4-ish stakes. And Anna and Judy can help you understand better what we're talking about with those. You'd be amenable to putting in some of those stakes at the edge of the.
Oh, no, I don't mind. So I just need to know where I can get them. What's the standard? Yeah, that's no
Okay.
problem. Yeah.
So what you would want to do is get in touch with Judy and Anna once we're done with the meeting, and tomorrow or the next day, whenever you can get by the office or make a phone call, and they can walk you through all of that, what they look like. I believe they're free, the actual medallions, aren't they? Judy?
Yes, we can give you the medallions.
But you would have to get some stake posts
Yeah,
to put in the
right,
ground,
right.
and
Yeah,
they can
okay.
walk you through that and how far apart they are.
Okay. Sounds
So
good. Thank you.
to the commission, if he agrees to replace the trees on a 2-to-1 and put in the PIBs along the current edge of his lawn, does that feel okay without asking for a delineation plan?
Okay, I'm gonna say something, Ted.
Okay,
If that's okay with me, but I'm concerned that maybe not him, but the next owner clearing more down to the river now that I see the photograph. So as long as it's clear, there's can't be any work going beyond this point, then I'm okay with that.
Thanks. Anybody else?
Yeah, Ted, I think it makes sense to not have to do the delineation in this particular case, but it's important to clarify how many trees we're looking for 2-to-1. Is it just the 2 trees plus the 1 still to come down, or the other trees that we have clearly see here having been cut down? And then I think it's important that we receive a plan showing where the proposed plantings will be placed and where the PIBs will be placed. Not necessarily an engineering plan, could just be a simple sketch that we can have documentation for, but to just blindly say plant 6 trees, plant 12 trees,
I think you're right.
not ideal.
I think you're right. John, when were the other trees, the older stumps cleared? Was that before you were?
So I think before this sale happened, I think probably the previous owner might have cut it down.
Okay.
So,
Yeah. Okay. So that. It's,
but I can also, I cut 2 trees, so I can put 4, and then I think there are 2 other stumps there. I can also add the extra 4, so I don't mind doing that either.
So that sounds great. So I think what we're moving towards then perhaps is this. We can change the enforcement order to not require the delineation, but keep the 2-to-1 planting. And you sound like you're in agreement, John. Let's say a 2-to-1 planting for the 4 trees removed. So that means put 8 back, but come back to us to show us where you're planning to put the plantings in, and a handwritten sketch plan, nothing that has to be professional, that also indicates where the PIB markers will be, and then the trees presumably on the far side of those. Does that sound like it's something that could work for you, John?
Yes, I can do that. Yeah.
Through the chair,
Yes.
Ted, should we also include what species of trees are going in, just so that they're gonna work out in that area?
I think so. My last directive suggestion was work with Anna and Judy to put that plan together and make sure it all is the kind of thing that we're looking for. So I didn't want to belabor that point in our meeting now, but hopefully John can work with staff to put that together. Does that sound good, Heather? Great. All right, so now I'm a little unclear on the motion. I think the motion that I'm going to ask for is approval of the enforcement order, but with the requirement of a delineation removed. I think that's the motion we need. And then informally, we hope to see John at a future meeting with a sketched out plan for the replanting. But I don't think that needs to be in the motion, does it?
I think the meeting deadline is in there already.
Okay. Okay. So it's buried in the enforcement order. Okay, so I'd love a motion for voting on the enforcement order with signatures, but removing the requirement for a delineation of the wetland boundaries.
So moved.
And adding the plan.
With an addition of the plan
Yeah.
when they come back by the deadline, whatever that deadline was, July. Adding the plan?
Yes, the first to add the plan as well.
Okay. And a second?
Second.
And we can have a vote. Ed Harrow, have you shown up yet?
There you go.
Vote. Tim,
Aye.
Melissa,
Aye.
Janine,
Aye.
Heather,
Aye.
Matt. And thank you, Jim, for your understanding, and we look to see you again in a couple weeks.
All right, see you later.
Not you, Jim.
You did say Jim.
You did say Jim.
Oh, I
so
meant to say John.
He's picking on you.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much.
Sorry, John, I got the wrong J.
Okay, I was wondering. Okay.
When your
bye-bye.
name wasn't on my screen anymore, I had to guess.
Okay, see you later. Bye-bye.
All right, thank you very much.
Okay.
Our watch says it is 7:25. I thought we could get 63 Chamberlain in before new hearings, but I thought wrong, as my grandpa used to say to me all the time. So we're going to go to new hearings. I need to open public notice on the first one, 5 Parkwood Drive. The Hopkinton Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Tuesday, June 17th, 2025 at 7 p.m. virtually online to hear all persons interested in a request for determination of applicability filed by Revity to install pad-mounted mechanical equipment with associated work. Location 5 Parkwood Drive, Assessor's Map R23, Block 11, Lot 0. Welcome back. I know I saw you here. Mark, welcome back, Mark. You want to walk us through your newest information for us?
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman and members of the commission. Again, my name is Mark Beaudry with Civil Works New England. I'm a professional engineer here in Massachusetts, and I was before the commission for an informational meeting back on May 13th, which we talked about this project, and a couple things have changed that don't look like much on the plan, but I think they're fairly significant. First of all, you may recall that this area where this equipment is proposed is in the loading area that's off Atwood Drive, that heads down off of Elm Street, down to behind the mobile station, down towards 86 Elm Street, etc. So it's in the as we had discussed last time, it's substantially in the loading area, and what's involved, which is paved at this point, which is important. And what the Revity is proposing to do is add these 3 HVAC ground-mounted equipment that has ductwork that goes up onto the roof of the building, and to support the work that's going on inside the building. And the wetlands involved are the drainage system that's on the for the roadside area on the opposite side of Atwood Drive that provides a buffer zone onto the property, and you can see 3 B lines, which represent the 50-foot line, the 75-foot line, and the 100-foot buffer zone line. And after talking to the commission back in May, what Judy and Anna were kind enough to share the file for the 86 Elm Street project, which dated back to 2023. So that wetland line was still current, and it was substantially the same as the line shown on our original plan because it was very well defined, actually. But now that's a standing, valid wetland delineation. And if you pan a little bit to the right or the north, you can see there was another wetland with the series W1 through W9 that was at the end of Atwood Drive. That's also part of the 86 86 Elm Street project. Now, the other line, which starts, it's really hard to see, but I think it's flag number 128, kind of goes down, angling down, which is kind of to the northeast. That is the wetland line that was delineated as part of the original Perkin-Elmer project for 5 Parkwood and 68 Elm. That was on the, dated back to, 2012-ish. So I think the commission decided at the informational meeting that wetland also is so well defined that it's maybe not as much as the drainage channel, of course, but it's pretty well defined because of the slope. And so it was decided that line did not need to be redelineated. And importantly, there's another piece of work that is happening on the north side or back side of the building, which is that proposed generator pad, and it's well outside the buffer zone, as you can see. So with that slope, there was no way that wetland line was going to change so much that buffer zone would come into question. So The plan has been updated for that purpose, which is important. That's one of the important things I mentioned. And back to the HVAC equipment, maybe Judy or Anna, who's ever controlling here, could zoom in a little bit. What we did at the commission's request was to move that outer HVAC equipment pad, which is closest to Atwood, to the north, so that the entire pad and stone surround is within the area of existing pavement. So now there is no new pavement, no new disturbance between the 50-foot and 75-foot lines. So yeah, so that's all up to the 75-foot. It's all previously disturbed land, and in fact, it's going to be improved by switching the pavement to stone and around the pads. And then in the 75-foot to 100-foot, those pads still stick a little bit into the grass area. That again is, previously altered. It's grass, and that is we left that as is because we couldn't change those pads without really affecting all the rooftop equipment and everything. So, but that outer pad was able to be changed. And importantly also, with the addition of the stone around the pads, we're actually reducing the impervious cover on the property by 867 square feet. So with removing of the car parking, this area was used for parking of 11 cars, but with removing the parking spaces in this area and replacing it, with a component that is clean and has a lower impervious footprint, it's actually an environmental benefit to the area. So that's why I think the commission, after discussing this at the informational meeting, decided that we could run this through with a RDA application, which we appreciated. Although we still had to notify abutters and everything else, of course. Now, let's see. So I know, we did talk about at the time also about possibly doing some screening of the, planting. It turns out there's a pretty good vegetated buffer between the pads and Atwood Drive. So all that equipment's going to be well screened. And in fact, it's important to note that this work required site plan review by the planning board. And I believe that hearing was last night, and the planning board unanimously approved the project. So that's important to point out as well. So anyway, let's see. I'm sure there's something else. We did get some comments back from oh, by the way, this is also not in any natural heritage priority habitat area or anything like that. And those Mass GIS information and whatnot was included with our application. Oh, I know what I was going to mention. Under the local bylaw, one of the comments of Lucas Environmental was that we did not submit a formal wetland bylaw waiver request form. And the way I think it was left by Lucas Environmental was that the commission should discuss whether they wanted that or not. And what at first, when I sent a letter back to respond to comments to the commission, I kind of deferred to, said that we're more than happy to discuss that. But, during the day today, I looked at the form and said, it's quite straightforward. So what I ended up doing was actually preparing that waiver form and included that in by email to with the plan revision and stuff. There you go. To Judy and Anna. So basically, I could read through it quickly. I hereby request a waiver from section 3.6.4 performance standards, table 3-1, requiring a 75-foot no build zone. And the reason for the waiver request was that all work will occur in the outer 50 feet of the buffer zone, and work within the 50 to 75-foot zone is entirely within an area that is paved. Impervious coverage will be reduced. In accordance with section 206-4H1, the project can be classified as a minor project for which an exemption to the bylaw requirements is allowed. Respectfully submitted for brevity, Mark Beaudry. So obviously we respectfully request that waiver. So
Great.
that's and I touched on it earlier that the site is entirely paved now for the most part. It's certainly within the 50 to 75-foot area, and then there's only a minor amount of disturbance of a previously disturbed area in the 75 to 100. So we think in this case the waiver is justified.
Great, thank you. Is that it?
A couple other, I'm not sure if Lucas Environmental had a chance to review our response to the comments that they had, but I could go through them really quickly if you'd like. I don't know if the commission has
Well,
seen.
I did see them. They came in yesterday, but I think we got them today, I think. I
Right.
was able to catch them and take a look.
Okay.
I don't know if Joe did, but if I could summarize your responses, most of them were, you're right, we did this, we fixed that, we fixed this. And it sounds like responding to comment 2D, you just shown us that you have done now a waiver form. I think that was in
Yep.
response to Joe's 2D comment.
That's correct.
So it seemed the only two I highlighted, and then I'll open it up to commission members after a moment to see if I missed anything. Comment 2B,
Right.
it seemed that maybe you weren't clear in what Joe was looking for.
Yeah, because when I look at the filing fee worksheet, we did down at the bottom say that we were doing one RDA, so it's like one RDA plus one consultant review. I think it was $580. And we did articulate on that form how we arrived at the $580 filing fee for the RDA. And what I saw is there was no other need to fill any information in on that form. It almost
Yeah, let me throw it to Joe and see what Joe has. to
Sure.
say.
Yeah, that one's on me. I was my PDF was having some issues last week. And sometimes I was getting blank pages that weren't necessarily blank. And when I looked at that again, it did come up with the information on it. So you can ignore that comment.
Great.
Excellent.
So the only other one I saw then, Mark and Joe, was comment 2G, which is simply about PIBs and whether they're needed or not. Otherwise, it seemed, Mark, that for every one of Lucas's comments, you made the adjustment or agreed and made the fix.
Yeah, and what Joe had suggested was a note on, concrete wash, a note on what to do with if there was stockpiling going on, and then adding an erosion control barrier detail, and we did all that. So it just really quick on the concrete wash, we basically followed the US EPA guidelines where we suggested a plastic lined hay bale pit where you put the concrete wash in, either pump out the water or let it evaporate, and then you take the solids and dispose them off site. So that's what we called for on the plan. In regarding what I would expect to happen on the as far as excavation, it's realistically probably going to be loaded into trucks directly and hauled away. But if there was a small chance that there was a small stockpile, we would absolutely surround that by hay bales, by erosion control barrier. And we included a note on that on the plan. And then the detail was basically for a silt sock, type detail that we often use these days. So that detail was added to the plan as well.
Great. So I think what I'd love to do is ask the commission your thoughts on PIBs on this property. I'll offer that in this case, I don't know that I see a need for PIBs. The edge of the water is pretty obvious, and there are streets involved. It's not like a homeowner with woods in the back where trees may get cut down or anything like that. But I don't get to make the decision. In my mind, there's no need for PIBs, but I'm wondering what the commission thinks.
I would be in agreement, Ted.
I agree as well. Yeah.
Yep,
Is
agree.
there anyone who doesn't agree? Please speak up. Okay. By the way, an update, Ed is having trouble getting on. He's in town hall, but can't seem to get Wi-Fi. So hopefully we'll see him soon, but he's struggling to get in. So maybe we'll see Ed in a bit. Okay, commission, was there anything else in Lucas's notes, or if you got to look at Civil Works responses that you think we need to address?
Not for me.
Hearing none, is there anybody from the public who has questions or concerns about this project?
Speaking of the public, Mr. Vice Chairman, it turned out, like Joe was saying, that something was happening with our PDF creator that day, and the map of the 300-foot abutters was total gibberish on the PDF. So I provided a new clean PDF of that today for the record.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
It feels to me like we're ready for a vote, but I'm going to get the wording wrong. So I'm wondering if Anna or Judy, you can tell me exactly what the motion is we're looking for.
Yeah, let me pull up an example for you so that I don't mess it up. So this was one of the last DOAs that you all had voted on. So if you're voting for a negative determination, meaning they don't need to file for an NOI, the language is area is not subject to jurisdiction, work is jurisdiction, but will not remove, fail, dredge, or alter. Work described in the request is within buffer zone, but will not alter, therefore does not require filing of a notice of intent. And I can double check what the request was from the applicant for what the
Through the chair.
should say.
Yes.
Yeah, typically you guys just vote with a negative with the standard conditions, and then if you have any special conditions, like the PIBs, which obviously you decided not to, or any,
Okay.
Lucas comments that we need to incorporate into
Okay.
the determination, and then with a staff signature, please, and thank you.
So we're looking for a motion of a negative determination. I don't think we have any special anything to add on. It seems like everything's been addressed, except we don't need PIBs. So I'm looking for a motion of a negative determination and to vote to allow Anna and Judy to provide our signatures.
I'll make that motion.
And
Second.
there's a second. Let's go through a roll call vote. Jim,
All right.
Melissa,
Aye.
Janine,
Aye.
Heather,
Aye.
Matt,
Aye.
and Ted Barker Hook is an aye. Thank you
Awesome.
very
Thank you
much.
very
That
much.
was wonderful, and you were great in responding to Lucas. So thank you for your
Oh, thank you for your consideration. It's Revity Bill will be very pleased. And I I'm probably going out a bit on a limb, but is it possible to discuss the certificate of compliance request? Because we did get comments back on that today from Lucas Environmental. I'm thinking that might go quickly. Anybody's-
Here.
Yeah, go ahead.
We just got comments back from Lucas this morning, and I have not looked at them.
Okay.
So have no recommendations, unfortunately, yet.
None of us have seen any of that work, Mark. So
Okay.
we're going to need you to come back to deal with that as a separate issue.
All right, if we could do it soon, because from my understanding is there's some kind of real estate transaction in the works that, with the owner. And this that is because that was kind of hanging out there, it's kind of holding that up. So the sooner we can get that done, the better. So, but I do absolutely understand where everyone's coming from.
Judy, do we have space on July 1st, or is that a packed meeting?
Usually we don't schedule COC discussions until staff are fairly confident that
Okay, all right.
the board will approve. And like I said, I haven't looked at what Joe's comments were yet.
Well,
So
Mark, we'll do the best we can for you. That's all we can promise.
Excellent. That's all I can ask.
Okay,
Thank you very much. Have a
Thank you,
great night,
Mark.
everybody. Appreciate
bye-bye.
it. Bye.
Okay, moving right along, we have to open another new hearing, which means I get to read another piece of paper. The Hopkinton Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Tuesday, June 17th, 2025 at 7 p.m. virtually online to hear all persons interested in a request for a determination of applicability filed by Donald and Karen Wolf to replace a septic system with appropriate associated site work. The location is 11 Edge Hill Road, Assessor's Map R7, Block 19, Lot 0. I have one small question before I even open the door to you. Wolf's, is Edge Hill Road one word or two, and does it matter for her paperwork?
Hi, this is Karen Wolf. Typically two, and I don't think
Okay.
but I don't think it matters.
When I was on Google Maps, it seemed to be one on Google Maps, so I got confused. But thank you. Would you like to tell us about what you're hoping to do?
Sure. I see. My husband is
I'm
here.
representing.
Yeah, Karen Skinner is our representative.
Welcome, Karen. Would you like to fill us in on what's going on?
Certainly. Do you want me to put the plan up, or does someone there
I think
put the
Judy's
plan
got
up?
it up
Oh,
for
it's
you.
it's up. Sorry. Okay, so for the record, my name is Karen Skinner Catroni. I'm wetland consultant representing the owners of 11 Edge Hill Road. The owners are requesting a negative determination to replace their failing septic system. The site currently consists of a single-family house on a 60,339 square foot lot. The lot was delineated in May of 2024. BBW was flagged in association with an intermittent stream. All work is outside of the 50-foot buffer. The existing tank is in the area of Test Pit 3. The existing tank will be pumped dry, crushed in place, and filled with sand. A temporary stockpile area is shown on the plan outside the 100-foot buffer. There'll be no overnight storage of equipment within the 100-foot buffer. No trees need to be removed in association with the project. There's no estimated habitat, priority habitat, rare species within the vicinity of the project. There is also no riverfront or 100-year flood plain in association with the project. There is a vernal pool, I believe a couple lots over. It's over 250 feet or 250 feet from the proposed work. The system has been approved by the Board of Health. We're showing compost sock and orange construction fence as erosion control. And that's it. I guess if you have any questions. Oh, and I just want to discuss the access in. We're going to use the driveway and go to the left.
And I know that was a question that Joe brought up.
Mhm.
Great. Let me throw it over to Joe. Hopefully committee member or commission members were able to read your notes, Joe, but are there any highlights you'd like to hit for us?
I'll just mention a few, I guess. So as far as the delineation, it looked good. Didn't have any issues with the delineation. Just as a An observation, there was some leaf dumping in the area of wetland flags 2 through 5. And also not associated probably with any work that happened on this lot. I spoke with the property owner when I was out there. There's silt fence, old silt fence remaining in the area of wetland flags 1 through 3, and that's along the wetland edge into the wetland and actually in the stream that's located in that area. And I think that was associated with the, based on my discussion with the property owner, with work that happened for the crossing for Bridgeton Way a number of years ago, but that's still in the field, and probably someone should probably get that out of there.
Joe, before you go on,
Yeah.
just on that point, is that the kind of work that a homeowner could just pull out, or is that going to do damage to what's going on there? Does it need a more careful hand than just?
I think parts of it can be removed fairly easily, but parts of it are kind of buried, and it's gonna take a little work.
Okay.
I didn't follow the length of the whole thing, so I wouldn't be surprised if parts are well buried. I just kind of saw the parts that were exposed in the part that crossed the stream.
Commission members, that'll be something to keep in mind, I think. Thanks, Joe. Keep going.
Yep. Just regarding the certified vernal pool that's mapped, as Karen had mentioned, it's about 250, 275 feet off-site to the southeast. Now that's where the Mass GIS pin marker is for the vernal pool. Looking at aerial photos, it looks like the actual edge of the vernal pool, when you can see ponding is larger than that. And potentially with the additional buffer zone under the bylaw, you could be getting, the edge of work could be getting close to that additional buffer zone. However, I think really where they're locating the system is as far away from that vernal pool as it can possibly get. So I don't know that there's any other option if it were within the extra 125 foot setback. And it's a replacement system and not a new system. So I think that may remove it from consideration for that extra buffer. Let's see. I did note that there was a temporary stockpile. I recommend that an erosion, although it's outside the buffer zone, I recommend an erosion control barrier be placed between the stockpile and the road, just to prevent any sediment from getting into the road and possibly getting to a catch basin. And the access issue was just addressed. And also no PIB markers. Again, I don't know if this is something that the commission would like to see of this for this work or not, but something to discuss. And that's the extent of my comments.
Right. Thank you, Joe. So it strikes me that what I hear from Joe's report, we might have a very brief discussion about removing the leaf pile, erosion controls around the stockpile, and a PIB discussion for the commission, and then a question about what's best for the silt fencing. Those are the highlights I heard. I'm sorry, I've forgotten the name of the woman who was speaking with us a moment ago.
Oh, Karen.
Karen, I'm sorry, you're not on my screen and I didn't. So
That's okay.
I think we could dispose of the leaf pile very quickly. Is the owner willing to remove the leaf pile and get it out of the buffer area?
Actually, I'm on, this is Don Wolf. I'm on the call right now. Can I talk?
Great.
Can I address that?
Sure.
So, I've walked around that property, and so I think there's a couple of areas where the leaves are a little bit higher than typical in the rest of, say, the wetlands, but it's really hard to differentiate where, say, it's not like it's a leaf pile. It's a little bit deeper, but it's not like it's obviously that much deeper, because with all the trees back there, you get a lot of leaves in the wetlands without doing anything. So we would be willing to, so that all those leaves, that's not like a leaf pile. That is basically, a lot of those leaves would have been back there regardless of if I had the people doing the fall cleanup, pull stuff back there. So I'm willing to like smooth things out. But if you keep going back further, which you can't in this picture, there's leaves all the way towards the stream.
So let me ask Joe. Joe, is this picture showing what you saw, or is there something, is there a better photo that you know of?
Yeah, no, it's I would agree it's not like a pile. It's an area where it certainly appeared that some extra leaves had been dumped and maybe spread out over time, about 8 to 10 inches deep. So it's not like a major pile of leaves, but just there was evidence that they had been being piled there probably from lawn raking activity. So I would think spreading them out thinner might be okay. That entire forest floor is covered with leaf litter all the way down to the wetland and into the wetlands. So it's just deeper, noticeably deeper in that location.
Through the chair.
Yes. Matt.
Joe, is there a concern with the leaves that you have?
At that depth, not a big concern. Maybe, note that the leaves shouldn't be piled deeper or continue to be piled in the area.
So,
Which,
excuse me, I'm sorry. The one thing is, we've lived there for like 27 years, and I've always known there were wetlands behind us. But I never really knew, say, where the wetlands began. And actually, I talked to Joe when I was there, and it's kind of like that area where those leaves are, there's never any water there. And he explained to me how, basically they determine where the wetlands are. So I, appreciated that information from him. So we would be willing for the future owners, because we do have a offer on our home. We'd be willing to put some placards or whatever you do on some of the trees back there, so they don't put leaves back there. Because I can tell you it's common practice in our neighborhood, right or wrong, that a lot of people that are close to wetlands as well dump their leaves there and their grass clippings. I don't drop grass clippings back there because I use a mulching more. And so I don't, basically have the need to drop stuff. But if you walk along the different properties, you can see where people are dropping grass clippings and leaves, probably within, say, the 50-foot buffer zone of some of the wetlands. So anyway, we're willing to put a marker on those trees wherever you want them. And I'll spread the leaves out a little bit more.
That, in fact, I was going to jump to that bullet point. If Joe is comfortable with the depth of the leaves where they are now, then we don't have to ask you. And again, I don't want to speak for the rest of the commission, but in my mind, if Joe is comfortable, I don't feel the need to ask you to move them or spread them. But if we could get the PIB markers along the grass, hopefully that prevents you or future owners from putting anything back there. Do we have, can we look at the plan, Judy, of the yard? And does it mark where the extent of the lawn is? I don't know that I see a line for lawn.
So in that specific area where the leaves are, the lawn is actually it's probably at least 50 feet away from the wetlands in that general location.
Okay. Well, there's the 50-foot buffer actually looks like it goes through your house. So you're probably a little closer than 50 feet, unless the leaves are in the front yard. So yeah, I think what I'd like to see, and I think what I hear, there we go. Let's look at some photos really quickly at the backyard. Do we have several, Judy, or just one or two?
So this is the side, and then these are all Joe's pictures.
Okay.
And then you come around the back. This is where the leaves were. And I think this is the best shot we have of the limit of lawn in the back.
Does the lawn, Don, kind of stop where those stones are, or do you mow on the other side of those stones?
I actually mow the stones, but it's not grass, it's mostly weeds. So I just try to keep the weeds under control by mowing them. But the grass is just really where you see those rocks, it doesn't go into that area.
So it would be helpful to me, and I'm going to open up to the commission in a moment, because actually we haven't talked about your septic at all. I jumped right to these other issues. It would be helpful to me if I had a plan that better showed me the edge of the grass and where the PIB markers would live. Because those rocks throw me for a loop a little bit, and I can't quite, from that photo, understand exactly where lawn would be, where a marker would be. So, yeah. I feel like I've gotten things out of order because we haven't talked about your septic at all. So let me do this. Commission, I'm going to shut up for a moment. Can we look at the plan with the septic, and let's focus on that for a moment. Do commission members have questions or concerned with the main focus of the ask here, and doing it under an RDA?
Ted, from my perspective, I think an RDA makes a lot of sense in this situation. Getting a failing septic system repaired is certainly something we want to get done sooner than later. That's a more likely issue to cause a problem if we don't. And then on the PIB subject, from my perspective, I think if we have PIBs along the tree line at 50-foot intervals, kind of beyond the weeds, right, where the tree line truly starts, I think that's an appropriate location, given we don't know necessarily the limits of lawn that were originally approved as part of this development. So to pull it back feels a little unjustified unless we have some basis for it.
Thank you, Matt. Other commission members? I agree on the RDA with the septic. It's going right where the old one was. I think it's all previously disturbed. The reason I skipped over it is that part seemed obvious to me, but I don't want to think for everyone else. Other commission members on the septic and the PIB seem to be our two discussion points right now.
Well, definitely agree on the RDA for the septic.
Thank you.
Yeah, I do too, Ted. I'm good with that.
Does anyone disagree with the RDA on the septic? The main gist of what we're here for is the septic, but people feel comfortable with that? So where I jump to is where maybe the discussion is. All right. Do we agree that PIBs are in order for this property? Does anyone disagree with that? So it's a matter of figuring out where they should be. I hear what you're saying, Matt, with we don't have the original plan. We don't know what the original permission was for the property. But I just can't picture on this map right here where those trees are, where those rocks were that we saw. And if those rocks are at the 50 or at the actual wetland line, I think that that's a bad marker. I mean, I would just like to have more information before approving a set of PIBs than we have from those couple photos. But I think, Matt, you feel safe using what you saw there. Are there other commission members with thoughts?
Honestly, I thought the tree line seemed like a reasonable place as well. The rocks just seem like this slightly above the tree line, and that would seem a little bit arbitrary to me, put them on the tree line except up to where the rocks are. So, I mean, I would be okay with the tree line.
All right.
Through the chair.
Yes.
The wetland line is is into the woods from the tree line.
Okay.
It's not right at the edge. So there is I didn't measure it, unfortunately, but it's not right at the edge of the tree line.
Do you have a guess how close it comes?
Well, I think near where the septic is going, and it's almost up to where the septic work is proposed. And then it, you know, more or less follows the topo. So it curves around the back. What's the speed? Closest, I don't know. I wouldn't want to guess because I might be off, but I don't think it's any closer than 10 or 15 feet.
Okay.
If I
Jim,
Saying the
was
tree
that-
line,
From the
the
tree
tree line, Joe, I'm sorry.
Right, from the tree line, yeah.
So I've walked the back of the property, where all the markers are for the wetland. I'd probably say it's probably close to 50 feet where the tree line is and all the markers are to say where you saw those rocks and say, because there's a lot of shrubs behind those rocks that basically it's just, you know, it becomes a jungle when the, you know, leaves come out.
Okay. All right, well, I'm being swayed to the other commission members who spoke up with that then. Also on my list is erosion control around the stockpile, I assume. Oh, I heard something.
That was my watch.
Oh, okay. You'd be amenable to putting some erosion controls around the stockpile and including that on the plan?
Yeah, that's not a problem.
I didn't think it would be. So then the last question is what to do with the silt fencing if it takes a little bit more of a careful hand than just grabbing it and pulling. And I don't have an answer. I certainly don't want to add to your costs by hiring some professional, but I don't want to. Joe, clearly it should be pulled out, but
Yeah.
sometimes you say restoring things could make the situation worse.
That's
Can I
true.
look to you
And
for
there-
a
there-
recommendation on this one?
There may be locations, you know, where you may have to look at it more closely, but there may be locations where you don't want to pull it out, but I think there are certainly locations where it should come out. And I don't know, I mean, as it was part of the work that was apparently done for the adjacent road, I don't know, you know, if it's the landowner's responsibility to take that out or whose it would be at this point.
Yeah, I don't either, and that's why I
Yeah.
thought the stuff that's easy, if you can just grab and pull, I don't think it's a big ask for.
Yeah, I think you could grab and cut some with the, you know, the utility knife, and probably get some of that out there fairly easily, but I think some of it would definitely take some more work.
So for Joe to go back would cost money. Anna or Judy, would you be comfortable just eyeballing that silt fencing and providing some guidance?
Through the chair, yeah. And then maybe, you know, I would suggest prioritizing the areas Joe said were in the stream to make sure that, you know, aquatic wildlife isn't being impeded.
Right.
But yeah, happy to take a closer look at it sometime.
And Don, you'd be willing to pull out the parts that are easy enough and just shove them in a bag?
Oh, yes, definitely. I mean, that was a massive project and they had a construction easement of sizable proportions when they did the Bridgeton Way building of the houses back there.
Yeah.
So I've already taken away a lot of the silt fences. There was a ton
Is
of
that true?
straw back there. There is, as Joe mentioned, there's stuff that's pretty accessible. But I was back there today, and this picture you're looking at right here, that silt fence that's going through the stream, that would not be easy to get out.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I'd want to mess with that.
Yeah.
And
So
that's
I
not on
agree
my
with Joe.
that's not on my property.
I agree with Joe. It shouldn't be your responsibility, but if you would be willing to have Judy just kind of say over here and over there, but leave these other parts alone, if you'd be willing to do that, I'd appreciate it.
Sure. No, I can do that. Happy
Okay.
to.
Commission members, is there anything else that comes up, or did I rush through this too quickly and not give you a chance to bring up an item or two?
So, yeah, through the chair, it's sort of unrelated, but if the silt fence is still there from a prior project, you know, when they built Bridgeton Way, does that mean they never got a certificate of compliance and we should potentially look into having them wrap that up or?
For the Bridgeton Way builders?
Yeah, like if the silt fence is still there, does that mean there was no certificate of compliance because we would have had it removed then?
That's a
Right?
good question.
Through the chair, we can look into that. I don't know off the top of my head, but that's a good question.
It is a good question. All right, thank you, Judy.
Sure.
And thank you, Janine.
Oh, sorry. I heard the J and I thought you were thanking me.
No,
Sorry.
I did. Well, I thank you both. I thank Jim as well. Commissioner,
All right, good to be.
anybody else have a thought or something they want to throw in? Is there anybody in the public who has a comment or question? So I think what we're looking for is a motion for a negative determination and permission for signatures.
Through the chair.
Yes.
Sorry. I would maybe recommend if there's things you're still looking for on a site plan to hold off on issuing a DOA so that the timeline doesn't start and we know we can get those
I
materials.
think you're right, because I would like to see the erosion control around the pile, and maybe we could put on there where the PIBs are going to live. Thank you. I think you're right. We ought to hold off a vote for one more meeting. Are you okay with that, Don and Karen?
When are you closing, Don?
We're closing like mid-August, and so we still got to get through your approval, then the Board of Health approval. So I think we have concerns on the timeline if we push things out another, to the next meeting. So I don't know if there's any way that, I mean, we will get things done. I would say that with all my heart, we will get things done. So if there's any way you can give approvals, because we actually started this back in March. We had the testing done in March. So it's been a fairly long process and fairly expensive process.
So, Melissa,
Mr. Chairman,
well, I was gonna.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, go ahead, Karen.
I can have that put on the plan and shown on the plan and brought to you tomorrow, if that's okay with you.
Thank you. Melissa, I'm wondering if I could go to you and get your thoughts on the timing of all this.
Yeah, I mean, best practice is to wait, but I think there have been cases where we've made exceptions, for this kind of thing with a house sale. And I think putting erosion control note for the soil stockpile area is a fairly minor item.
And the PIB markers also, I think, minor.
Through the chair, and also note that the soil stockpile is outside the buffer zone, so it was just suggested to keep sediment out of the road.
Right. So Melissa, you would feel comfortable voting on this today, and what would we have to do? Say Anna and Judy can't sign for us until they're happy with the updates on the plan?
I think, I don't know that we can say that because the clock starts ticking, right, Judy?
Yeah, I might recommend, it's tough with DOAs because we can include conditions, but they're not enforceable like they are with an order. But if you had those outstanding items, I would recommend if you were to issue today to include them as conditions. But we cannot wait to issue it. In theory, if we don't get those items, it would just become conditions. So that being said, if you really want to see PIBs, the safest thing to do is to wait, but it's up to you.
I get worried about precedent. I also, my own gut is I trust these homeowners to do what we're asking. I get nervous about the next homeowner who maybe is less trustworthy and saying, but you did it for these guys. Commission members, can I get some input? Would you like to vote today or would you like to wait?
Yeah, Ted. So
is that Matt?
Yeah, it's Matt. I would agree with Joe on the soil stockpile. It's outside of our jurisdiction. We can certainly request that they put perimeter controls around it, and it sounds like they're open to doing so. The big question I think we need to ask ourselves is whether or not we're comfortable not having PIBs documented on this particular plan, given it's a negative determination for an RDA. it sounds like, and correct me if I'm wrong, Judy, it sounds like even if we have PIBs on this plan, if we issue a negative determination, we're still not in the same position we would be as if this was an order, because there's no certificate of compliance requirement. So my sense is, if we really want PIBs, we'd have to ask for a notice of intent filing, and I don't think any of us necessarily feel like that's the path we need to go here. So, you know, I would be comfortable making a motion to issue a negative determination with added conditions that PIBs be placed at 50-foot increments along the existing wood line, and that perimeter controls be provided around the stockpile area.
Did you just make that motion?
I proposed it. I guess you can say I made that motion.
I would
motion
second
is-
that
Anyone-
motion you
anyone would like
proposed.
to second it?
Heather seconded that motion, which means we need to vote on the motion. Does everyone understand the motion? Great.
Aye,
Jim,
aye.
Melissa,
Aye.
Janine,
Aye.
Heather,
Aye.
Matt,
Aye.
and Ted Barker Hook is an aye. Did that motion include, do we need signatures on the RDA?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Could I get a motion to have them put signatures on that?
So moved.
And a second? There's a second. Voting on the signatures, Jim. Jim,
Aye.
Melissa,
Aye.
Janine,
Aye.
Heather,
Aye.
Matt,
Aye.
and Ted Barker Hook is an aye. Thank you, Matt, for helping out with that motion. Thank you, Commission, for helping me think through that. And thank you, Don, for your willingness to work with us.
Thank you very much for your approval. I will work to get everything done that you've requested.
Great, thanks.
Thank you.
Good luck to you.
Thank you.
Have a good
All
night.
right. At this
Thanks.
point, we're going to move into continued hearings, and I'm going to pass the gavel to Matt. He's going to lead us through the continued hearings.
Through the chair,
Yes.
can we just open and
Oh.
vote to continue the other one, please?
You know, I had a mental note for that before and then I forgot. So yeah, we're going to open the hearing and then we're going to continue it immediately. The Hopkinton Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Tuesday, June 17th, 2025 at 7 p.m. virtually online to hear all persons interested in a notice of intent filed by Alicia Ila Solon and Samara Vern Solon, 1993 trust for parking lot alterations with associated site work. Location 85 to 89 West Main Street, Assessor's Map R23, Block 75, Lot 0. Do we need to vote on continuing it?
Yes.
I would love a motion to continue that hearing to July 1st, 2025.
I'll make that motion.
And
Second.
roll call vote. Jim,
Aye.
Melissa,
Aye.
Janine,
Aye.
Heather,
Aye.
Matt,
Aye.
and Ted Barker Hook is an aye. And now I pass the gavel on to Matt to get us through the continued hearings.
Sounds good. Thanks, Ted. So first on the docket, we have Ravenwood LLC, 0 Wood Street, off Route 495, abbreviated notice of resource area delineation. This is a continuation from prior hearings. We have a representative from the applicant on the line. Judy, were we expecting the applicant this evening? Do you know?
They did not request to continue, but we did not receive any new information, so.
Through the chair?
Yes.
Yeah, I did get an email from the applicant that they were requesting a continuation on this, and apparently they said they couldn't get through to staff.
Oh.
I do think, Judy, that there's something going on with the internet at town hall because the website's down. Ed can't get on, so something must be going on, probably with the email servers too. So with that said, it sounds like I would appreciate a motion to continue to July 1st, 2025.
So moved.
So move. Second.
Great. Ted, we saw you step away for a moment there.
I heard about it all.
All right, perfect. So we will do a quick roll call. Ted,
Aye.
Heather,
Aye.
Janine,
Aye.
Melissa,
Aye.
Jim,
Aye.
and I am an aye. All right, moving on. DeWolf, 47 Oakhurst Road, notice of intent continuation for a single family home. Do we have a representative from the applicant for this item?
Hi, everyone. Yes, you do. This is Andrew Tebow, wetland scientist with Goddard Consulting.
All right, great. Thank you, Andrew.
Absolutely. Do I have permission to share my screen?
I think we can give you permission if you would like it.
If you don't
before
mind,
we-
I do have some colored versions of the plans I can run through, but if the town prefers to have the screen up, I don't mind.
That would be great. Before you get going, Judy, if you don't mind, just updating the commission quickly on anything since the last time around. And if you're not prepared for that, we can go right to Andrew.
Sure.
Let him do most of the talking.
I'm a little rusty. So we did get a second review from Joe, and revised plans showing native plantings. We have confirmation from the applicant that they will be pursuing Chapter 91, whether after or if an order is issued. Some narrative on Joe's findings on hydric soils atop the retaining wall, and a little bit more clarification on what exactly is being included in calculations for after the fact work in jurisdiction, and where in the buffer zone various amounts of impervious surface lies. So not a ton of plan changes, but some discussion to be had.
Okay, great. Andrew, does your presentation hit on some of those topics?
It definitely does. Yeah. While I'm waiting for permission to share, the only thing I would add to that is essentially what's happened is we had first filed with you guys in March. We had attended March 11th, and that was sort of the introduction to the project. And then at that point, we had received both Lucas's first peer review letter and Mass DEP's comments. And so on May 20th, we submitted all the materials that Judy had just referenced. We did receive a second peer review letter from Lucas on June 4th. However, for tonight's presentation, the goal is to run through the submittal that you guys received on May 20th, because it had a lot of our substantial revisions that we had not been able to discuss with you yet. So that's the goal tonight. And then obviously with Joe here to summarize sort of the remaining comments and the next steps.
Great. So why don't we kick it off with you, Judy, if you don't mind allowing Andrew to share his screen, that would be
Yeah,
great.
he should be able to.
Perfect. Thank you.
Through the chair, I just wanted to remind, I'm abstaining from this hearing because I'm in a butter.
Great. Thank you, Janine, for reminding us.
Perfect. Thank you. So what I'm going to do first is just start by showing briefly the plan that was discussed with you guys first on March 11th. So originally, when we had first presented the project, we had shown the commission the existing house that's on the property, the roughly 800 square foot dwelling and driveway, and we had explained the goal of a tear down and rebuild, pushing the property up to the setback allowance, constructing a new single family house, and adding dry wells. And then at that time, as Judy had mentioned, we had received a peer review letter from Lucas and comments from Mass DEP. And at that first meeting, we had a pretty substantial discussion around a number of items. Some of them were in both Lucas's report and Mass DEP's comments that mitigation plantings along the lake here would be a substantial improvement over existing conditions, especially for a fully developed lake property. There were some questions on, and the commission will remember that this property was originally discussed with the commission back in November of 2020 for sort of a minor project exemption for some landscaping work in the back, and it was unclear on what portions of the project had occurred under that or if that was ever granted in the first place. And then there was a number of site plan revisions that were requested of us. So my goal is to update the commission on everything we've added as of that last submittal, starting with a mitigation planting plan that was submitted on May 20th. So this is the same colored site plan that we had just looked at, now with mitigation plantings added. So what we had done is first in the southern portion of the property, wrapping roughly the entire southern property boundary, the applicants had actually previously installed 32 arborvitaes. They use the native Thuja, Oxon, and Talus over there. So those are on site currently, but the site survey did not show them. because these are the native variant of arborvitaes and they do provide good wildlife habitat, we did want to call them out and just make a note that these are existing arborvitae to remain. And the remainder of the vegetation we see on the plans here is newly proposed native plantings along the bank of the lake. So we had a mix of 20 shrubs and 10 plugs to go along the lake. The goal is, because this property has an existing wall here and a dock here, we used all areas where there's not direct lake access, and we plan to fully restore them through the shrub and native flower plantings. I do want to note on this that one of the comments that we received on June 4th in Lucas's letter just called out that purple coneflower has some conflicting information on whether or not it's native to our area. Because it's iffy and does not appear to be, the commission will be receiving just a revised version of this that swaps this out for a true native species. So the number of plantings is not going to change. We are proposing a full lake planting, but that is one important item to note here. Otherwise, there are quite a few additions to the plans. At the time when we had first submitted this, we had proposed 2 dry wells capturing all the roof runoff. They're located in the rear and the front of the proposed house. At the time of submittal, there was not a test pit done, and so Lucas's letter had suggested that a test pit be done so we can confirm our seasonal high and make sure that our stormwater management is sufficient. And so we see a test pit location here. This was conducted on April 29th, sort of in between our last meetings with the board, and the test pit data has been added to the plans. What they found was a seasonal high water at 84 inches, which puts us at the 348 contour on this site plan. The bottom of the Coltex is at 350.5, so we get over our 2-foot separation there. So we confirmed our stormwater management through a test pit. We were also asked to add a bank label to the plan. Because this site is an armored wall along the lake, we were describing this wall as the bank of Lake Maspinock. However, the original plan only called it wall, so we added a bank label just to specifically call out the resource area that we are actually defining and adding our buffer zones from. Another important detail is we tightened our erosion controls. Although the Lucas letter came back and had suggested the erosion controls proposed were sufficient, we had been chatting with the engineers, and because much of this work on the patio has already been complete and the only work that's going on back here is now that the native planting installation, we felt it fit to tighten the erosion controls just up closer to the proposed work in Coltex to the point feasible, just to get the work as far from the bank of Lake Maspinock as we can. And we also added the FEMA flood zone line to the plans. Another important submittal was at the last meeting we were discussing. So as of now, we're currently showing a 25-foot no disturb and a 50-foot no build. And we had some conversation on the waiver request that we had submitted and whether this property would be subject to a 50-foot no disturb or a 25-foot no disturb. And so in this revised materials, the commission did receive the subdivision plan of land that was last revised in 1950. And so we had clarified in our comment response letter on May 20th that we feel that the 25-foot no disturb and the 50-foot no build zones are applicable to the project here. And then another request from that conversation at the last meeting in the Lucas letter was, at the time we were showing much of this work as existing. However, we had that conversation about what portions of this were done under the expectation of that minor project exemption that appeared to not have been granted. And it seems like some of the work that was being called existing really needs to be captured under this notice of intent. And so what we did is we had worked with the engineers to sort of go back and look at the property at the time of that minor project exemption request and take a look at what was there then, what's there now. And we had submitted a letter that sort of touches on this. And what we had found is that some of this work was discussed. There is the wall that was shown here with the intent to be built. They discussed the existing shed, and they made reference to an existing patio up here, but it wasn't quantified, the work that was to be done up gradient, exactly where it'd be located. And then in reviewing the meeting minutes, it seems that a minor project exemption was never granted. It was just discussed at the meeting. There was some more materials to be submitted, and things tended to have fizzled out. And so what we did was the engineers had given us calculations based on that old work of what actually was sitting on the property in November of 2020 at that time. So we revised all of our buffer zone calculations on this project to now have the existing mean that before this minor project exemption was submitted to the commission, before any work had occurred, before this notice of intent filing, that's now our existing numbers. The proposed impervious surface cover numbers are now any work that was done outside of that, any work that's proposed under this project. It's now all to be brought and quantified under this notice of intent. make sure we have approval for everything, and also to make sure that our stormwater management system is sized appropriately. And we also broke that out by square footage of each structure specifically within the 0 to 25, the 25 to 50, and the 50 to 100. So it is important to note that we found that there is a complete net change to impervious surface cover of 1,829 square feet, because the existing back in 2020 was 2,076, and we're increasing it up to 3,905. The Coltex have been sized for 4,080 square feet. So we found that in quantifying this, we made sure that they were sized correctly. And then with the test bit, we confirmed the separation from seasonal high groundwater. So this was all submitted to the commission on May 20th. And like I had mentioned, we did get a peer review letter from Lucas on June 4th. There were a few comments left in that as far as minor plan revisions, a planting substitution, and then there was also a request to include a straw bale just along the plantings that we see here to make sure that there's no erosion going into the lake during planting, and a bit more discussion on the waiver request that we have going on. So the commission will be receiving an updated submittal that clarifies the remainder of the Lucas comments, but because that last meeting was canceled after we submitted this on May 20th, we wanted to make sure that we had time to discuss all of our changes here with the board, see if there's any other questions or comments the board was looking for, or if there's anything that Joe Roselle from Lucas wants to add to my summary here, and make sure that the next submittal the commission incorporates all open remaining comments. So with that, I'll definitely turn it over to questions.
Appreciate it, Andrew. Before we get to questions, Joe, do you have anything you'd like to add?
I can touch on a few. I think a lot of the original comments we had were addressed. Just a couple of outstanding items that I'll touch on briefly. There was the applicant submitted subsequent information on a DEP superseding order of resource area delineation regarding existing lawn prior to 1983, before implementation of the Wetlands Protection Act, and how it might apply to this location. We had pointed out that there was some observed hydric soil above the retaining wall. At the time that I looked at it, it was still pretty solidly frozen. I got 1 or 2 augers in, but didn't spend much time looking at the extent of that. But it looks like the hydric soil doesn't extend far above the wall. Number one. Number two, the vegetation at that time was very low and primarily just a grass. Could not be identified at that time. The information submitted by Goddard is that as we've gotten into the growing season, most of the vegetation that is coming up in that area is indicative of upland vegetation conditions. So it apparently wouldn't meet the vegetation requirements, but I have not looked at that in the growing season personally. Regarding the case law that they had cited, just a couple of comments that it was from the southeast region and it was more than 16 years old. So without spending a lot of time in doing an actual review of that, we're not sure that it would necessarily apply here. But I think the bottom line is that if there is a BVW fringe there, I think it's pretty narrow, and I don't know that it would impact anything that they're really proposing to do, except maybe the planting of the mitigation plants. Remaining question on the previous patio area. It's being considered, I think, as pervious. And I was just wondering if the applicant had additional information on what that patio consisted of. Based on the aerial photographs, it wasn't apparent. It was not apparent as what the surface of the previously existing patio was, and just wondering if the applicant has knowledge of what that consisted of, as it may create a change in the pervious and impervious calculations. Also, the Hopkinton Conservation Commission had stated in their approval for the exempted work that was approved, that, and I'll read the quote, further detailed information should be provided for the stairway to the lake, and it would appear to be amenable as a minor project if the steps of the stairway did not extend beyond the existing wall and did not extend into the lake. So I have some photographs that I submitted, which looks like the steps are new and the steps do extend beyond the edge of the wall. Therefore, that may be something that needs to be included in the current notice of intent. Because it looks like that was not included in the minor project exemption that was issued by the Conservation Commission. I noted that the waiver request was not signed or dated, but now I'm wondering if that was again an issue with my PDF. I would have to double check on that. Would recommend that the FEMA flood insurance rate map number be added to the site plan as a reference, just so it's on the plan. Also, we recommend the scientific names of the proposed plants be added just to avoid any possible confusion, and that there are no yeah, I can't remember there's a term, I'm blanking on the term, but no cultivars. And as was mentioned, the purple coneflower does not appear to be native to Massachusetts or to most of New England. Also, regarding the steps into the lake, as they do extend below the high water line, those may also need to be included in any Chapter 91 filing that would need to be done for the wall. I think that covered my remaining comments.
Great, thank you, Joe. Andrew, why don't we start with the Chapter 91? Are you planning on including the steps in that application package?
So I've discussed that with the homeowner, and I'll defer to them whether or not they want to keep them. I know in talking with them that there is a step there that is likely to be removable. So the homeowner would have to determine by the time we submit our materials to the commission next time whether or not that would be proposed under this application with the intent to keep it, or if it would be removed to avoid needing the Chapter 91 permitting. But we did include in our last submittal to the commission that regardless, portions of the dock and work over there do require Chapter 91 permitting, and we did agree that the order of conditions for this project should require Chapter 91 permitting, and we would pursue it. It's just a question of whether or not they're going to keep that step to include that in the permitting or not.
Yeah, well, I think either way, it needs to be included in the permitting, because if you're going in to remove it, we're going to want to have that on the plans, and if it's going to stay, of course, we're going to want to have that on the plans for approval.
Yes. Yeah, regardless of action, it will be clarified and requested as part of the work.
Yeah. In terms of the material of the patio, are you categorizing that as impervious, or has that been categorized as pervious? And if so, what material is it?
Yep. So the homeowner let me know that the previous patio that was there was concrete pavers. So they were using that as an impervious surface. The material that's there now is a travertine stone. So although I'm not specialized in that work, I know that stone is favorable because it can be a little bit more permeable, say, than asphalt or concrete. But we are using full impervious surface totals for both the old patio and the new patio.
Okay. Yeah, that's kind of what I was hoping to hear.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on here. I think the commission would agree with that. We have some previously unpermitted work in the 25-foot notice serve. We have unpermitted work in the 25 to 50-foot buffer. We have some proposed development in that 50-foot buffer. And I'm personally a bit disappointed in the mitigation plantings that are proposed, considering all of those things. I'd say it's marginal at best. So from my perspective, I think we're going to want to see more mitigation plantings along the lakefront to offset the work that has occurred to date and the work that's being proposed. In terms of the proposed dwelling footprint, we do have a 50-foot no build. can you help us understand the justification for the proposed dwelling extending into that area?
Yeah, I'll do my best to explain both of those comments. So to your first comment about the plantings, absolutely, and part of the reason why we had not submitted a response to Lucas's last peer review letter is because we wanted to take the commission's comments into account on what else they would like to see here, knowing that there's a lot of moving parts in this application. So the intent is absolutely to take your feedback and comments and Lucas's remaining comments and address them. So I do appreciate that. As far as the footprint of the house, I can make a note of that to have the engineers clarify the footprint in our revised comments. What I do know is they've made every effort to move it up as much as they possibly can. I know they had a telephone pole removed from the front of the property, and they also had a zoning relief to go up to the 30-foot setback instead of the typical 40 here. So the goal has been to push it up as far from that 50 as possible. Because this was a previously developed lot, it was not impervious all the way back there, but it has been lawn all the way to the edge of the lake. So the goal was to push the dwelling up as far as possible, but to give them a reasonable sized home that we can design stormwater around and mitigate to the extent feasible. But I'm happy to have the engineers address that in a little bit more detail.
Yeah, I think we would appreciate having some justification for that encroachment on the
Yeah.
records. We can take it into consideration.
Absolutely, and that can be part of the revised waiver request you receive as well.
Appreciate that. Commissioners, does anyone have any questions, thoughts, comments they'd like to share?
Matt, I had the same reaction as you as far as the plantings not being enough. We're really looking for a filtering system, filter strip. That's the point of having that along the bank. So I echo that comment that we need to beef that up. And usually we don't look for building in the 50. So that was another point I agree needs to be looked at.
Matt, this is Ted.
Thank you.
Yes, Ted.
Yes, on the plantings, it's wholly inadequate, and the house shouldn't be where it is. The extent of the patio is also it's huge, and a lot of it was not permitted initially. I get frustrated with work that is not permitted, but then we'll just come back a few years later and say, well, we've already built it. How about you approve this plan? I find that a tremendously frustrating situation to put us in. And I'm wondering if there can be some other discussion on that patio plan to maybe make me less frustrated, I'll say.
Yeah, Ted, I think that's a fair point, and it is definitely worth something considering as a commission. Yes, it's in. I think we all understand that, but it's also unpermitted. So it's something we need to keep in mind moving forward with this particular application as to how we want to handle that work in the 25-foot no disturb area. So just I ask commissioners just to think about that a little bit between now and the next time we meet. I know Andrew and his team are going to be providing us some additional information and responses to Joe's latest comments. So I'd suggest, Andrew, just in addition to the justification for the dwelling, maybe some additional thoughts from the applicant on that patio and the no disturb and why the commission should approve this work after the fact.
Absolutely. No, I appreciate these comments, and we will absolutely incorporate them into our submittal. No problem at all.
Great. Thank you. Anyone else have anything? Anyone from the public have any questions or comments? Okay, not hearing anything. Andrew, in terms of a continuation to provide you enough time to pull documentation together, are you looking July 1, or do you think you're going to need a bit more time and you'd like us to push it out further?
We should be good to go for the July meeting. I've actually already revised the planting plan and some of those items. We just hadn't submitted them to make sure the commission was able to see the other submittal and talk about it. So I don't believe it's too hectic of a timeline for us to make sure we can get you guys something, a week ahead of that next meeting. So we'll continue to July. And if there's any reason why we can't make that happen, we'll check in with Judy and Hannah.
Yeah, and I agree. If you, really we're trying to be a little more strict about documentation, getting it in a timely manner. So if we're going to try to continue to July 1, that's 2 weeks from tonight, we'd really need documentation in hand a week from today. So it sounds like July 1 we'll target, but if it's going to slip, just let us know and we'll go from there.
Perfect. Yep. Fully understood. And that sounds good to us.
So I'll entertain a motion to continue to July 1st.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Second, great. Quick roll call. Melissa,
Aye.
Ted,
Ted is an aye.
Janine.
Abstain.
Yes, thank you for reminding me. Heather,
Aye.
Jim,
Aye.
and I am an aye. Thank you, Andrew. Look forward to talking to you again on the 1st.
Great. Thank you, guys. Us as well. Have a great night.
You too. Okay, moving on. Next item on the agenda, 30 West Main Street, 0 Elm Street, 0 West Main Street, notice of intent, continuation for a single family home. We have a representative for the applicant online.
Yes, I'm here. Good evening.
Sam, good to see you again. Yeah.
You too. Good evening. So for the record, Sam Alfronti, professional engineer in the Commonwealth. I'm with Solely Engineering. Our offices are at 11 Vanderbilt Ave in Norwood, Mass. Judy, if you could allow me to share my screen, that'd be appreciated.
Don't worry. It should be able to.
Okay.
Judy, while Sam's getting his screen set up to share, can you just update the commission on what's occurred since we last met? I think we've got some new documentation in the file.
Sure. So we have updated plans showing a tree mitigation plan as requested by the commission the last time this project was discussed. So a significant amount of trees are being proposed now along the length of the driveway. And the applicant has provided information on the mitigation ratio. And there have been PIBs added around the house as well as along parts of the driveway. We have had a second review from Joe and have not received responses to that yet. That should be it.
Okay, thank you, Judy.
Yep.
Sam, if you want to run us through your presentation, that would be great.
Yeah, I just want to, it's been quite some time before, since we've been before you. I think it's over a month now. So just to catch everyone up, we have been issued a DEP file number. And the project subject site, I'm sure you're somewhat familiar with. Just to bring you back up to speed, it's between Elm Street and West Main Street. The single family residence is proposed access through 30 West Main Street. And there's a significant riverfront area as well as some isolated wetlands with associated buffers throughout the property. And in the revised site plan, which we briefly discussed about a month ago, like I said, we were able to reduce the impact to the riverfront area quite significantly. I think it was down to about 1.7% of the entire riverfront area of the property. It's just under 3,000 square feet of disturbance. As we discussed previously, the disturbance is kind of in direct relation to the leaching field, and the leaching field's location is directly dependent on the soil conditions that were observed on site and performed during the perk testing. So as Judy mentioned, we have submitted a tree mitigation plan as well as a PIB plan. So I've kind of colorized it a little bit here just so it's easier to talk through. So we are proposing 61 native trees. And I've outlined the mitigation rates that we're proposing, as well as 20 shrubs, which kind of vary in species between summer sweet, holly, and high bush blueberry. Judy did have an email correspondence back to me after submission of this regarding a PIB installation along the northern and easterly property lines, and I've kind of outlined those with these red arrows. So there's existing stone walls that run the property line, and based on the definition of PIBs in the regulations, I didn't think it was applicable to add placards as well. We certainly would be amendable to that if the commission thought it was necessary. But as I mentioned, those do run the property line. I don't see this being problematic for clearing beyond the rock walls. As I mentioned, this property owner won't own any of the land beyond the property line. So, but yeah, I'd be happy to answer any questions. I did get a chance to look through Lucas's second memo, and there wasn't a response provided. A lot of the comments, or almost all of them actually, just deferred to the Conservation Commission to discuss. So I didn't feel it was necessary to actually submit a response to that, but I'd be happy to respond to any that. I think the only thing that actually might require a plan revision was regarding the construction entrance, which I'd be certainly happy to provide a updated plan showing that. But otherwise, I think we've satisfied most, if not all, of Lucas's concerns, as well as staff concerns. And like I said, I'd be happy to answer any questions or discuss things further.
Great, thanks, Sam.
Through
Joe,
the
do you have
chair.
anything? Yep, go ahead, Judy.
Sorry, forgot to mention at the start, we did receive an abutter letter that is saved in the public folder. So if commission members want to review that, the abutter is concerned about the size of the house, concerned about trees that were marked for removal as part of the previous filing that might be confused for removal on any future approvals. So concerned about, more trees being removed than are necessary. And this abutter also has a well that is 14 feet from the property line, and he's concerned that that might be impacted by the installation of a new septic system. So just wanted to point that out for folks that there isn't a abutter letter in the public folder.
Thanks, Judy. Is it typical for us to read that into the record, or are we good with it just being available in the files?
Usually just have it available in the files and mentioned at the top of the meeting. Yep.
Okay, great. Thank you. Joe, did you have anything you'd like to add?
Quickly, I think I had my continuing comments in my last review had noted the revised planting plan and the numbers that were just reviewed. I also had noted that under note number 6, under planting soil notes on the plan, it's stating that the topsoil mix should include 5 pounds of superphosphate per cubic yards of mix. Don't know that that's appropriate to be using next to a wetland. Would just like the applicant to comment on that or provide some additional information on the superphosphate. There was a note on previous note regarding the width of the no disturb zone for the driveway and whether it was single driveway or shared driveway. I think that was discussed at the last hearing, and just noted that I don't know that that was any conclusion was reached at the last hearing. PIB locations were added, that was discussed. And the construction entrance, that was discussed. And there were also mass DIP comments regarding incorporating permanent markers and making sure that requesting that the commission copy the applicant copy DEP on any material before the commission closes on the project. And that's pretty much my remaining comments.
Okay, great. Thank you, Joe. So I have a few items here that I just want to run through. We hit on the PIBs. From my perspective, if that is indeed the property line and there are rock wells there, I tend to agree that additional placards are not necessary in that location. In terms of the driveway, the last time we had met, we requested some justification for why we should consider this a private driveway. I don't recall seeing anything come through. From my perspective, with the driveway going through the abutting property out to West Main Street, serving both this proposed home and the existing home, I would consider this a shared driveway. And the setbacks from the wetlands are increased for that particular situation. So I'd either expect to see a justification for why we should call it a private driveway, which I'm not sure we're going to agree with either way, or a waiver request for the encroachment into that setback requirement, that no disturb requirement.
If I may respond.
Absolutely.
So I looked back at all of our correspondence I had with Judy as well as Lucas Environmental, and it appears Lucas in the first letter concurred with our assessment that in accordance with, I think it's table 3-1, it was a private driveway. So I think it's, if that is how the commission wants this to go, I think consultation with the peer reviewing consultant would probably be warranted too. We certainly can submit the waiver request. I think at the location of the crossing, which is how I read it, it's a private driveway. If there was a driveway beyond this, I would agree it's a shared, but at the location of the crossing, it's not a shared driveway, it's a private driveway. And that's my view on it. Like you mentioned, Matt, I think we probably might agree to disagree on this, it appears. I don't know if we're going to come to a resolution on this meeting, but that's my take on it. Like I said, I'd be happy to, if the commission is abundantly in agreement that I'm in the wrong, I'd certainly be happy to submit a waiver request. But I do want to say that the peer reviewing consultant as well as Judy did concur with my assessment. So.
No, I understand where you're coming from, Sam. I think the big thing for us is just having some documentation. We understand what Joe had provided in his comment letter and some of the dialogue that had occurred previously, but where we left it the last time we met was we were looking for some justification from the applicant on why it would be a private driveway, because we weren't comfortable coming to that conclusion. So I'll leave it in your hands as the applicant's representative to decide whether or not you would like to submit a waiver request or a justification for it being a private driveway. Either would be fine in my mind. I'll open up to the commission for their thoughts on this topic before we jump to the next one. If anyone has anything they'd like to add. Yes, Anna.
May I suggest, since the stone wall is not really apparent on this plan, that it be labeled as an existing stone wall and be labeled as a PIB, if that's just so that it is documented. I mean, some medallions along there wouldn't hurt, but at minimum, that would be my suggestion, is to physically label it as existing stone wall and acting as PIB.
That's a great suggestion. Sam, do you think that's something we can add with the other updates to the plan?
Yeah, it's labeled on both locations, protect and maintain existing wall along property line. I can certainly add to act as PIB if you'd like, but it's up to the commission, I suppose, if that's necessary.
Yeah, I mean, if you're making edits to the plans anyways, and you can just add a little extra text to those labels.
Sure.
That would butt it up nice and cleanly for everyone.
Yeah, certainly.
Matt, going back to your comment before, I agree. I just, based on the last meeting, you did request some written argument for the driveway, and I think that is important to have, whichever way the applicant wants it to go, for the file, for future hearings, for future projects. So when we look back, we can see why, a decision was made. So yeah, I would just reiterate that I think that is important for our files and decision making. Not just talk about it in the meeting. Sam, explanation is a good one, but just put it in ink.
Yeah, I can certainly do that. I kind of forgot about that one piece prior to this meeting. I apologize. I'll certainly pull a letter together tomorrow morning and send it over to Judy.
It's all good. No need to apologize. It happens. The other couple of items are really for the commissioners to consider. We've looked at this project for a little while now. Ultimately, what we're going to be deciding on is whether or not this proposal is consistent and compliant with our local bylaw and regulations, as well as the Wetlands Protection Act. And in particular, as it relates to the riverfront area, we have the option to allow up to 5,000 square feet or 10% of riverfront area disturbance, whichever is greater. And in this particular case, I think Sammy mentioned it was less than 2% of the riverfront area that's proposed to be disturbed, and it's at the outer edge of that 200-foot riverfront area. So that's something we need to be thinking about as we get closer to making a decision on the project. The other thing we need to be aware of and make a decision on, I think we can probably do this tonight, is whether or not we're satisfied with the alternatives analysis for that work within the riverfront area. So I'll open it up to other commissioners for thoughts on either of those topics if they have them now. Otherwise, we can keep moving forward.
To the chair, I have one more comment.
Yes.
Was the applicant aware of that adjacent well, and does that existing septic system meet the proper offsets? Because if not, potentially you're looking at more riverfront disturbance if they have to move that, correct?
That is correct. I would imagine if it's within 100 feet, they're going to be looking to push that septic system further planned north and potentially increasing the riverfront area disturbance. But I will say our responsibility as a commission is to review the project relative to the Wetlands Protection Act and the bylaw and regulations we have for the commission. The Board of Health will ultimately be responsible for deciding whether or not that Title V system is compliant, and the planning board or other board in town will be determining whether or not this complies with zoning, and the fire chief will decide whether or not he or she is happy with the access. So I'm gonna urge commissioners to focus exclusively on our responsibility for this particular project. But that is a good point, Hannah.
Through the chair.
Yes, Ted.
The part of the alternatives analysis I continue to push back on has to do with the size of the house, which then indicates the number of bedrooms, which leads to the size of the leaching field and all of that. I do not think it makes sense to talk about what an average home in Hopkinton is and ignore what is the average home in this neighborhood. And the letter we got from the abutter suggests the same thing, that this home is much, much larger than what is normal in this neighborhood. And I don't think comparing it to an average Hopkinton home makes sense to me in a alternatives analysis.
I would agree with Ted on item number 2 in the alternatives analysis that it's not consistent with the directly surrounding homes in the area. Regarding the size.
Thank you, Ted and Janine. Sam, anything you'd like to add in response to that thought?
Yeah, certainly. So I think Commissioner Barker, Hook, we went back and forth a little bit at the previous meeting, or maybe the first one. But I will say, so the septic system or the leaching field is based entirely on bedroom count. So the applicant is wishing to construct a 4-bedroom home. The size of the home and that location really isn't going to change based on soil conditions. Obviously, we could go further potentially into the riverfront if we found more suitable soils. So the size of the home, it could, if it was reduced, let's say, the impact to the riverfront area, which is the resource area you guys are jurisdictional over, the remainder of this project is buffer zone. That's not going to change with the size. If this, let's say the size of the house was 1,500 square feet and it was 3 stories, the leaching system would still be placed in the exact same location as a 4-bedroom home. So I understand the questions and comments. I do truthfully think that the proposal here, I mean, we're in the outer 160-foot buffer of the riverfront area. There's severely more impactful developments that have occurred in riverfronts to greater extents, and I'm not using that as reference. I'm just trying to ground the commission a little bit. I mean, we did reduce our disturbance. I think we were originally at about 3,500 square feet. We're at just under 2,900 now. I think we're trying to work with the commission to get this done and make this a developable home for the applicant. So that's where I stand on that.
So Sam, if I'm hearing you correctly, and I think I am, regardless of the footprint of the house, if it's a 4-bedroom, that septic system's not moving any further out of the riverfront area unless we were to allow an encroachment into the 50-foot buffer, which we have as a no build. Is that a fair understanding?
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, when you locate septic leaching systems, it's entirely based on soils. So we found suitable soils that have a decent perk rate in this area. And if any of you have visited the site, I'm not sure if you haven't as part of this application, but I know prior during the ORAD and stuff, you might with ANRAD, you may have. But there is, if you go to this site, in the proposed location of the leaching system, there is a kind of an upland mound, and that's kind of where it is proposed. It is a sandy soils there. So that's correct, Matt.
Thank you.
Chair?
Yeah, was that you, Janine?
I think it was both Janine and myself, Heather. Janine, go ahead. You go first.
So, through the chair, while we're specifically talking about riverfront area here, there are also other jurisdictional areas back there. An entire house in the 50-foot buffer zone is not something that is desirable either.
I don't think we're in the 50-foot.
Yeah, Janine,
I'm sorry, it's 50 to 100. Excuse me. Yes, the 50 to 100 as well. An entire house in the 52 to 100 is not, to me, is not something that's desirable either.
Yep, I can understand that. I will, Sam, I'm probably going to say the same thing you're about to say here. Our responsibility is to use our bylaw and regulations and make a decision based on that language, and we allow residential buildings outside the 50-foot buffer. So as undesirable as it may be, it is something we allow in town in our regulations. So I hear you, Janine.
I just add to that, I think it's at our discretion allowable. Looking back at a lot of the projects that we've approved recently between Chamberlain, Whalen, Whisper Way, Turkey Ridge, all the buildings were outside of the 100-foot buffer, and there was just grading between the 50 and the 100 for all those projects. I think on Chamberlain, there was one where we allowed half of the building within the 50 to 100, and that had to do with a lot of other mitigation that they did throughout that development. Whisper Way, there was one where there was 3/4 of the building was in the 100-foot buffer and maybe a quarter of the septic system. So I went through and looked today through the files just to try and pick out some things of what we've looked at more recently.
And Blueberry Glen too. I don't know if you mentioned that one.
Which one?
Blueberry Glen.
I didn't mention that one, no.
But that one as well. So we looked to have them move the houses outside.
Yeah, I think it's very much at our discretion, but I think that is the trend that the commission has been holding more recently for the single family homes.
That's helpful to understand, Melissa. You've obviously been around doing this for quite a bit longer than I have on this particular commission. A question on that topic, just to help me better understand, right? It sounds like those developments had opportunities to go outside the 100-foot with the location of the home.
Yeah,
And
they had bigger properties, but we were looking at the individual lots, that they created at the time. The other thing, I guess, just to remember is that when we have a project like this, where we're looking at something specifically under the bylaw, we'll split the vote. So we vote under the Wetland Protection Act, which would, have different, obviously, standards and might be agreeable, versus what we can uphold in our bylaw, and we do a vote under that separately.
okay, that's helpful too. From a siting location, and Sam, correct me if I'm wrong, it appears the only area on site outside the buffer zone is shown on this plan, and it's sort of like a somewhat of a rectangular shape, I guess, is the closest thing I could describe it as. Yeah, right where your cursor is right now. Is that it? Can you help us understand where there is area on site outside the 100-foot buffer?
Correct. Yeah. So yes, that's 100%. So I was just making sure the top right corner didn't have any areas, but the only areas outside of the 100-foot buffer, also outside of the 200-foot riverfront area, are kind of this rectangular area here. And I actually sit on a conservation commission as well, and I truthfully, with the commission's bylaws and regulations, where you have a set no build, I would actually disagree that I understand it's jurisdictional and the review areas between the 50 and 100, but you have a set no build that we are complying with currently. Besides that, the issue of the single family driveway or the shared driveway, there's no waivers needed or requested. So I just want to make that clear as well. So I obviously I don't sit on the commission and I don't have an opinion on this, but that is my opinion on how I read the regulations for that. So
yeah, thank you.
But yes, the only non-jurisdictional area is this rectangular piece. And Matt, I spoke about this at the meeting about a month ago when you guys didn't have quite a lot of time to review the revised material. But the way I looked at this when the applicant first brought this property to me is, and obviously we didn't file it this way, nor would we ever, but it's very similar to like a limited access project. There is an area of upland that the only accessible way to that is through the 50-foot buffer, through 30 West Main Street, and whether the commission obviously has jurisdiction over the 50 to 100-foot buffer, but there is an upland area as well as outside of the riverfront area between these isolated wetlands and the bordering vegetated wetlands that is developable for the single family home. So.
Yeah, no, I hear exactly what you're saying, and admittedly, I do share that same opinion as it relates to access to the upland and the landowner's right to development, both in that upland area and within our jurisdictional area beyond that 50-foot no build. So that, commissioners, whether or not you like to hear that, that's where I sit on this particular situation, where there is no other reasonable location to develop a single family home on this property. It feels to me that the applicant has done everything they can to comply with our bylaw and regulations. And the key item I think we need to really wrap our heads around and make a decision on is whether or not we think the work within that riverfront area results in no significant adverse impact. Because I certainly want to hear thoughts from other commissioners on this particular property and the situation that the applicant has.
Well, if I could just ask one question, Matt. Isn't this a self-imposed problem because it's the applicants deciding to split this is one lot. They're deciding to split it in 2 lots so they can build a second home. So isn't that self-imposed?
Sam, my understanding was this was multiple lots and these were consolidated.
I can answer that.
Okay.
So originally, and the applicant is on as well, but this property was 3 parcels. There was a parcel back here along Elm Street, and the original property line for the 30 West Main Street actually, the rock wall is existing out there if you were to walk out there, but there's a rock wall. This property line kind of went straight across. They consolidated these 2 parcels and then revised this parcel line. So it's always been 2 parcels. It wasn't split. It went from 3 parcels down to 2 parcels actually.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so
on the process.
So Janine, it does sound like they did take a portion of the 30 West Main Street lot and consolidate it with the other properties. The upside to that is the potential access from West Main Street. Alternatively, because the landowner has a right to that upland, we could have been looking at access from the other side, crossing the perennial stream through those resource areas to get to that upland land. They would have a right to do that as a limited project. This is not a limited project, which I'm thankful is the case, because it means that the driveway is not crossing through a resource area, just through buffer zone, which is certainly a better situation from where I sit.
Thank you.
Anyone else have thoughts, comments? Melissa, Heather?
No, I just had something I was thinking about. So the proposal to plant 61 trees, what is the plan for maintaining those trees so that you can kind of ensure that they're going to survive? It's a lot of trees to maintain. Just curious.
It is. Truthfully, I would have to speak to our landscape architect, and I could certainly provide a kind of a maintenance plan for those. I would assume you guys would be looking for some sort of a growth rate 2 or 3 years after as a condition of approval, similar to like a replication area or such. I'm not sure how that's been regulated previously, but we'd certainly be open to that if the commission preferred it.
Through the chair, thought might be worth mentioning. Anna and I go on exemption requests for tree removals along driveways, this close to driveways, probably on a weekly basis. So I would just have questions about the long-term viability of tree plantings that close to something that access needs to be maintained to. So just something I would add there.
Yeah, I share that same concern about proximity to the driveway and the spacing of the proposed plantings, the likelihood of survival. So I think, Sam, it would be helpful if the landscape architect could provide a narrative on those topics, so we can be a bit more informed as to what the long-term outlook would be.
Certainly, I can speak with her and the arborist too, and either get a plan together or get some maintenance so it's outlined and documented.
Yep.
I would add, I don't know. I feel that shrubs would be appropriate as well instead of trees, if that makes more sense from a maintenance perspective. So that stabilizes, where the work zone was and the soils and stuff, and provides some filtration of whatever's running off the driveway, but isn't, the big tree that might not survive or that gets taken out in a couple years.
Yes, I echo that sentiment entirely, Melissa, that shrubs along that stretch between those 2 wetlands could go a long way in having better survival and providing water quality improvements. Yes, Sam.
Yeah, I'm certainly in agreement with both of you about the shrubs. The last meeting that we had, I heard from a couple commissioners that it appeared the proposed mitigation rate was going to be problematic without regulations on that for the town. So that's what my goal was, to kind of plant as many trees as I could along this driveway. I do hear the concerns, and I somewhat agree with them. I think shrubs would be more appropriate in some locations, and maybe kind of supplementing some of the trees with additional shrubs. I don't think the applicant would be against that. And truthfully, I think the survival rate would probably be long-term higher. So I would definitely be open to having this revised and getting the mitigation rate maybe potentially a little bit reduced, with supplementing it with additional shrubs.
Yeah, I think if your landscape architect can look at that, it'd be great. I do think we want to still see some trees.
Yeah.
Maybe more appropriately spaced, so they're more likely to survive. And then in between the trees, some more dense shrubs. So maybe it's an increase in the number of shrubs off, maybe a 2-to-1 increase. Let's say, I'm just throwing numbers out there. I'm not a landscape architect, but if we lose 10 trees, replace it with 20 shrubs. Something along those lines, something that would make sense in that footprint. Melissa, is that sort of what you're thinking?
Oh.
Yeah. Yep.
Go ahead, Sam.
I was just going to say I modeled, and I corresponded with Judy a little bit. I did model the proposed mitigation off other municipalities in the region. I think it's Weston has a really good tree mitigation and shrub mitigation for removal. So that's kind of what I modeled it off of, but I can certainly, they had something, I think it's 4 shrubs equals kind of 1 tree is how they put it, if I'm not mistaken, off the top of my head. So I can certainly reduce the trees, increase the shrubs, and get the spacing to be more adequate for survival.
Yeah, that's a fair number. The other thing that may be worth taking a look at, because the riverfront area is certainly part of this discussion, there's clearly some woodland, right, beyond the limit of disturbance. Whether or not some lower growth at the edge of that disturbance makes sense, depending on where the trees are. Right? We're just talking about a tree line. The closest tree could be 20 feet away from that disturbance, so it may warrant having some lower growth as part of mitigation along that edge.
Certainly, we can include that.
And it sounded like you had done some tree counts and locations, so you're likely well informed as to where the actual trees are.
Yeah, no, I would actually agree based on what you just mentioned, that upland area that I mentioned earlier, like the hill, if you walk out there, that's probably one of the least densely vegetated areas. So I would agree. I think a low-lying kind of growth or shrub kind of line would help further protect, kind of as a PIB also.
Yeah.
In addition to the placards.
Yeah, and even if there's, like, if you're saying there's sparse woodland growth there, and a tree or two may make sense beyond that limited disturbance to just kind of help stabilize that area and fill it in a little bit more, and kind of do some mitigation in the riverfront for those impacts, like directly in the riverfront. I think there's some value there as well.
Certainly.
Any other comments, questions, thoughts from commissioners for tonight? Anyone from the public have questions or comments or thoughts? Okay, not hearing anything. It sounds like, Sam, you've got some action items coming out of this, updating the mitigation plan to incorporate some of the items we just talked about, updating your site plan to include some additional labeling of those rock walls and the construction access, some justification for the driveway or a waiver request, either or. We'll leave that up to you, what you'd like to pursue. And then commissioners, I think between now and the next time we connect on this particular application, just put some thought into whether or not we think there's any significant adverse impact to the riverfront area for this proposal, and whether or not we're willing to approve those impacts. And then just take a look at our bylaw and regulations and, just evaluate the project through that lens. Regardless of whether or not we move to issue an order or deny the project, we're going to want to have some clear justification for why we're doing either or. All right, I'll entertain well, let me ask you first, Sam, are you comfortable that a week's time is enough to get updates and documentation pulled together and submitted so we have an opportunity to review it ahead of July 1?
Yeah, certainly. I can get that likely pulled together and submitted by end of the week.
Okay, so I'll entertain a motion to continue to July 1 then.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Ted. Thank you, Heather. Quick roll call. Heather?
Aye.
Melissa?
Aye.
Janine?
Aye.
Jim?
Abstain, please.
Okay. Ted?
Ted is an aye.
And I am an aye.
Thank you all. Yep.
All right, I think that covers our continued hearings. Ted, am I correct that I'm kicking this back to you now for the?
That was part of the plan, but if you want to keep it, you can keep
it. All right, I'll kick it back to you and I won't be shy about any thoughts or comments.
Okay, great. So we're at 9:26. So hopefully I can move us along through our leftover work session items quickly. The first is minutes for review. We have 2 sets of minutes. Let's talk really quickly about January 7th, 2025. Hopefully folks got a chance to read them. Does anybody have any comment or critique or corrections? Hearing none, I'd love a motion and a second to approve the minutes of January 7th, 2025.
So moved.
Second.
Great. Roll call vote on those minutes. Jim?
Aye.
Melissa?
Aye.
Janine?
I'll abstain. I was not at the meetings.
Great. Heather?
I think I have to abstain from that as well. Yeah.
1, 2, 3. We can still vote. Yes, Matt?
Aye.
And Ted is an aye. The minutes, so it passes. The minutes of April 8th, 2025. If anybody has any comments, critiques, or corrections, please let me know now. Hearing none, could I get a motion to approve and then a second on that motion to approve April 8th, 2025 minutes?
I'll make that motion.
And a second. Was that a second? This should be an easy one.
I'll second.
I wasn't
There's a
thinking.
second. Great.
I'll be shy,
All
people.
right. Vote to approve. We have a motion and a second. Jim?
Yes.
Melissa?
Aye.
Janine?
Abstained. Weirdly, both meetings I missed are on the same night.
Okay. Heather?
Aye.
Matt?
I need to abstain as well. I was not present.
Okay. Ted was an aye. That's enough votes to pass it. It's unanimous, 5-0. All right, moving down. Thank you very much, everybody. Moving down our work session items, we get to the Toll Brothers, 63 Chamberlain Street, a request for a COC. Judy, can you fill us in really quickly? And then we'll see if we have a rep from Toll Brothers who's hung in with us.
Sure, through the chair. So this is a request for COC for one of the Chamberlain Whalen lots that was in jurisdiction. So this is 63 Chamberlain. Lucas review was done last year, but remaining items that we've received confirmation of were that erosion controls were removed, lot is looking stable. They have not been mowing past the PIBs. Inlet protection has been removed. The ground cover at the time of review was sparse. But the applicant did some seeding and it's coming in. So we looked at the site, it looks stable. And there were a couple of items in the review about items that they were recommended to be added to the site plan. However, many of these items were outside of jurisdiction, so the applicants did not add them as they were not jurisdictional items. So at this time, we feel that everything looks good to issue, but happy to answer any questions. And we
Thank you.
may
Do we have anybody?
someone online. Yeah.
Do we have anyone from Toll Brothers who wants to throw in a thought or two?
We do not.
We do not. Commission members, any question for Judy or any concerns?
Through the chair.
Yes.
I see Matt Ashley from Bowler and Ted Merchant on, so I don't know if either one of them wanted to unmute and say anything.
We can try again.
Yes, just before we got somebody else
Hello,
speaking,
Ted.
I was gonna throw it to Matt.
Sorry. Yeah, no, thank you for the great intro. Matt Ashley from Bowler. Been working with Anna, the town, and Lucas going through all here. Took a little bit to get everything together, but I don't think we really had any objections out here, and everything's coming in nicely. And on other ones, I know we're still working on and getting feedback. So at this point, we feel good about everything that we've done, and we'll continue to do on the remaining lots coming forward.
Great. Ted or Matt, or I don't know who deserves credit. I am happy to see they finally stopped mowing beyond the PIB markers. I drive by and check, and the grass is coming in nice and thick and fuzzy now. It's not true of all the properties in that neighborhood, and we'll have more discussions, I think. But on this one, it looks good. Commission members, do you have any questions for Judy or Ted or Matt, or any other concerns?
I do not.
Hearing none. Anybody from the public have questions? I hear none. I am happy to get a motion and a second to approve the certificate of compliance for 63. Do I have that right? Yeah, 63 Chamberlain Street.
With a signature, please.
Oh, with signatures. Thank you.
I will make that motion.
Thank you, Matt.
Second.
And there's a second. Let's go through it. Jim.
Aye.
Melissa.
Aye.
Janine.
Aye.
Heather.
Aye.
Matt.
Aye.
And Ted Barker Hook is an aye. Thank you very much. Moving on to work session 5.
Through the chair, can I just ask a brief question before we move on? You made a comment about homeowners, other homeowners possibly mowing into the buffer area.
Yes, indeed.
And my thought, other than telling them to not do that, which we've done a number of times, would be to bring the COC applications before you and you potentially deny them for those reasons, so that we can then present a formal reason for them, not to have a COC. Does that sound like a reasonable path to you, or do you not want your time?
If that will get the homeowner's attention, that sounds like a great way to do it. I certainly would not be ready to approve any of the COCs for the houses I have in mind based on the mowing.
I wouldn't expect you to, and I want to make sure we're aligned.
Let me just ask Judy, do you see a problem with that strategy, or have you spoken to them? And
No, I was just gonna say, I think that makes sense, but I was also planning on sending letters, doing a quick drive down both roads, seeing which ones are maintaining past the PIBs and sending an
Okay.
identical letter. I mean, if we're still seeing it after that, it might take some time to notice if they're actually doing it. So if we want to get it resolved sooner, and if Ted, you're looking to really push the COCs, then that might be a good strategy as well. But I'll probably
Certainly.
send the letters anyway.
certainly right now, grass is growing well with all the rain and the warmer temperature we have. So we ought to be able to see pretty quickly if they're paying attention.
Well,
Ted,
can
do
we
you want
hold
to
on
wait
this?
for Judy to pop those letters in the mail?
Yeah, for sure. And we have a number of COC applications coming in, and I think the decision was, Judy and Lucas would send comments, and we'd say, all right, well, let's not bring them in front of the commission because we know we still have things to do. But if those things to do are only mowing grass, and it's been X amount of time since the letter has gone out, then I think that's the strategy.
Okay. From my
I like
point of
it.
view, the houses I check on much more are the Chamberlain side. I don't have reason to pull into Wayland as much with my commute. But I think that there are some issues on Wayland too, based on what some folks have told me.
Through the chair.
Yes, Joe.
I did do a construction monitoring inspection out there on June 5th, and in my emailed report, it notes all the lots where mowing beyond the no disturb zone was observed.
Great, thank you, Joe. Okay, anything else on Chamberlain Wayland and COCs? Then I think, Ted, it's good to have you in the window because item number 5 is Toll Brothers project update over on Elmwood Farms, Newberry Glen. The stage is yours, Ted.
Sure. So I have with me tonight Rich Kirby from LEC, who has put together a presentation. I think you shared it with Judy. Rich, I don't know if it's easier for you to go through it with you sharing or Judy, but I'll let you run with it.
Thanks, Ted. Rich Kirby, LEC Environmental. I did put together a presentation that I'll go through quickly initially, and then happy to dig into any of the details, given I know you've had a long night. I can share my screen. There we go. And if the commission recalls, we appeared before you on May 13th to discuss a turbidity release. This is part of the presentation that we let me move this out of the way, that we gave to the commission at the May 13th hearing. We revised it for tonight. Basically, if you recall, we had talked about, here's the project site up here, and we have this offsite basin number 1 with a drainage pipe with a manhole, which enters a stormwater ditch into basin number 2, the grassy basin. Discharge from that basin enters street drainage, which eventually discharges to the stream. And so, based on all of our observations, it appears as though it was a failure in the this pipe, which had been replaced by the prior contractor, that caused the momentary release of sediment, relatively momentarily speaking. So, water going into the basin was relatively clear. So it was a failure at this point that we concluded. So at that meeting, we talked about a number of things that we were going to implement. Specifically, we were going to repair this drain pipe, which has been done. I'll get to that in a minute. We also installed 5 18-inch core log check dams with flock logs along this section of the stormwater ditch. So if we had another release, we'd have protection to the offsite basin number 2 here. We also sprayed 440 bales of straw with seed and tackifier onto the exposed soil throughout the site. And here's some representative photographs of these. This was submitted to the commission shortly after it was done. These photographs were taken while the work was in progress. Here's a representative photograph of the 18-inch core log secured with oak stakes with the flock logs on the down gradient side of the stormwater ditch. Here are some photographs of the pipe work that was done between basin number 1 and the stormwater ditch. You can see this is the outlet control structure. This is the pipe that ties in from the outlet control structure, goes underground. And then if you were to turn around and face the other way, you'd be looking at the drain manhole, which is here. So all of the grout work was done properly as they connect. And here you can see just a kind of representative example. This is what the grout work looked like when they excavated the hole, and this is what the grout work looks like before they backfilled it in. So things were done properly out there, and we don't expect to have any more momentary releases of sediment based on the infrastructure failure at this pipe connection. And finally,
Rich, if I can interrupt you for just a second on that,
Sure.
critical to note that anti-steep collars were also installed in that section that were not part of the plan, but were certainly lacking before. And we thought that and found upon activation that water was following the pipe along that run, and installing those anti-steep collars prevents that from happening. And we've seen a drastic reduction in the amount of water coming through the outlet since that was done.
All right, thanks, Ted. And lastly, the all that work's been done. The footprint of excavation has been stabilized with erosion control blanket. And at this point, Toll Brothers is requesting that the building permits that had been held be released. And with that, I turn it back over to the chairman.
Thank you very much. I am wondering if we've had any commission members or Judy or Anna to go out and see what things look like quite recently, or Joe.
Through the chair.
Yeah.
Yep. So Anna and I have been going out pretty regularly. We were out when they were doing the improvements at the catch basin and the channel. We've seen the coir logs go in, saw ourselves that after they repaired the leak in that pipe, flow downstream substantially went down. So that seems to be working. Have observed that they've stabilized the site. Haven't seen any turbid runoff since our last discussion. So from my perspective, everything presented at the last violation discussion has been implemented as discussed. And I have not seen any additional issues.
Does that mean, Judy, that the work is complete? The work that they thought might take 6 weeks is done? Because I think it's not quite 6 weeks, and maybe they were ahead of schedule.
So everything that was presented to the commission to fix the issues with the berm, as well as any on-site issues, has been completed to my knowledge. And I have been out, I mean, we've been out there every day, checking on things, making sure work is moving along. So to my knowledge, yes. And they have stabilized where they were doing the digging with those straw mats. So even the more recent work is not currently exposed.
Okay, thank you. Can I ask about the rest of the site and some of the other loose sediment that we were seeing that wasn't covered, some of the exposed subsoils? Where are we with all of those?
Sure. So that was photographed in the beginning here. Since at the last hearing, the commission really pushed us to have all areas of exposed soil stabilized. So this is where the 440 bales of straw were sprayed by Hydrograss Technologies. These are just some representative photographs of what that looks like, but it was sprayed all over. Sections have begun germinating. So we are in very good shape, in my opinion, with respect to exposed soils on the site.
Through the chair.
Yeah, Judy.
Sorry, I would also add, we did have PAR, who is the consultant responsible for SWIP reports, observe the work done on the berm. So that was peer reviewed, and we have their memos in the SWIP folder in the public drive folder.
And did they seem satisfied?
Yes. So I can pull them up really quick. This is not me forgetting they existed, I promise.
I never thought that for a moment.
It might take a minute, so if you have something else you'd like to bring
Rich,
up.
are you guys in front of your 6-week guess? Or is
Say it again, sorry.
Did you actually complete that in less than the 6 weeks that you predicted?
Yes, I think we lucked out with the weather, with the rain sort of holding off a little bit. The contractor was able to dewater that first basin using a dirt bag and changing it often. So they were able to lower the water levels to the point where they were able to do the work.
Great. I'm impressed and grateful for that. While Judy's pulling it up, I don't want to put our commission members who are also stormwater engineers on the spot, but Matt or Melissa, I wonder if you have any questions or, oh wait, maybe we ought to pause for a second. Judy seems to have found what we're looking for.
Yep, so I'll clarify the materials we've gotten from PAR are more observational. So we have description of the work activities and pictures, not necessarily, you know, a narrative on, yes, the work was done correctly. But I think in general, when we get reports from PAR, the SWIP reports, they identify maintenance needs or corrective actions, and we have not received any of those.
And if I could, for a moment, we did supply a similar letter from Bowler that said that, yes, that it was installed as intended on the plan.
Great, thank you. So again, Matt and or Melissa, I don't mean to put you on the spot too much, but I lean on you guys a lot when it comes to these kind of issues. So I'm wondering if you have any questions or comments.
You're always welcome to put me on the spot, Ted. I can handle it. No, I think what I'm seeing here in these pictures and what Judy's describing and Rich's is describing is exactly what we were pushing strongly for the last time we spoke. Source control was the big issue in my mind, and that's been addressed, and that the pipe getting replaced and that berm being constructed the way it should have been many years ago are all steps in the right direction. So I think we're at a point where they have satisfied our request. What I would be remiss to make mention of is that this should be the expectation moving forward as the work continues on the subdivision, that source control continues to be top of mind. So as other lots are being constructed, we don't run into the same issue down the road.
Yeah, amen to that. Melissa, do you have any thoughts you want to share? And if you don't, that's fine.
No, I think I agree with Matt. And when I look out my window the last couple rain events or weeks, my the stream has been clear, so I'm happy.
Great. So the request is that we free up the lots we put a hold on. Commission members, is anyone feeling not good about that proposal? Is there anyone who wants to suggest that we ought to wait a little longer? And if so, why? Nobody. Before we figure out how to do a vote on that, is there anybody from the public who would like to share a thought or a question? Seems like no. So Judy, do we need a vote to open those lots again? Or is that just something we say, sign away, Judy?
I would, because I think you voted to hold them up. So
it felt probably like that's what we needed to do. And so it's Ted or Rich, it's 3 lots that we put a hold on?
through the chair, we just, you voted to not issue new building permits. So the vote would be, I think there's one that they've been waiting to pick up, and then any like new requested building permits would be the ask.
Judy, through the chair. Sorry. Ted.
Yeah, I'm looking for how do we phrase this motion?
You're running the show now, so I gotta say through the chair. Do you know how many building permits are outstanding?
I believe just one.
But I mean, future lots.
Oh,
There's
future.
one. Yeah.
I don't think they've requested additional since the commission.
Ted or Rich, do either you know how many?
Matt, if your question is how many lots do we have yet to pull a permit on?
That's my question.
I'm gonna guess at 12, 11, something along those lines.
Okay.
But I don't know for sure.
Thanks. Just was curious kind of where we were on that progression of the work.
So how do we phrase the motion that we're looking for?
I would make a motion to release the pending building permit that's been held up and to remove the hold on future building permits.
That feel right, Judy? Is that?
Matt, well, Judy, Matt, Ted, gotta include the lot numbers on that. Include the lot numbers in that motion.
I don't know that
We
I have
didn't
the lot
include
numbers.
the lot numbers originally.
Say that again, please, Anna.
Through the chair, we did not include lot numbers originally. It was just any unissued building permits is what we held up.
Okay, but which ones are we releasing today? We know which ones, correct?
No,
We-
right now, based on the motion, they could apply for all 12 today that they have remaining.
We
But they've
don't
only
have to
applied for
approve
3.
all 12, but they can apply for all 12 if we approve the motion.
Correct. Last I heard, there was one in the office. I don't know whether any have been submitted since you put the last vote to hold.
Through the chair.
Yes, Matt.
So all I think we're really trying to do here is release the hold. Right. So we put a hold on future building permits. Now they've addressed all of the outstanding concerns to the best of our knowledge, and where it sounds like we're in a position where we're comfortable removing the hold. And that's really it. We're holding all of them. Now we're looking to release that hold, and the Toll Brothers and their team can submit building permits when ready.
Great. So I am with you completely. Is the motion I'm looking for a motion to release the hold?
I think
Is that all
that's the
we
simplest
need?
way. I think that's the simplest way to put it.
Okay. Are you making that motion, Matt?
I am making that motion to release the hold. Yeah.
Can we get a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Roll call vote on the motion to release the hold. Jim,
Aye.
Melissa,
Aye.
Janine,
Aye.
Heather,
Aye.
Matt,
Aye.
and Ted Barker Hook is also an aye. Guys, thank you for dealing with that as quickly as you did, and as apparently as well as you did. And I agree with Matt. This is the standard we're looking for consistently, not just when emergencies happen and we have to put holds on things. So hopefully we're done with violation hearings with this development or any future Toll Brothers developments.
I hope so too. And yes, I understand and believe that this should be the path forward. So I appreciate your
Fantastic.
time.
Have a good night.
All right, you too.
Thanks, everyone.
All right, we've got one more item on our work session items before public forum requests. We have a violation discussion for 37 Oakhurst Road. Do we have Mr. Holmes on the line? Don't know if we do. Judy, why don't you fill us in? Oh,
There we go.
great. So if you'll hold on
Thank
for
you.
a sec, Judy, could you fill us in on the violation? And then we'll see what the homeowner has to say.
Yep, through the chair. So this was the violation from earlier this year regarding unpermitted work along Lake Maspinock, including work on a patio, a deck, and other features. The enforcement order issued by the commission requested the applicant prepare a site plan with a jurisdictional delineation, as well as locations of all unpermitted work. And the homeowner is here today with some questions for the commission regarding what was required in the enforcement order.
Okay, and we received, Judy, none of the requested work by June 11th?
Correct.
Okay, and today's June 17th. Okay, Mr. Holmes, can you let us know what's going on?
Yes, I have completed all the enforcement order requests, and the only outstanding task is just putting back the patio stone. And upon review of the NOI, I felt that it was not applicable to the property. Meaning like it doesn't need elevations, there's no wetlands. Everything was there before. It's just been a repair of the wall. And now I'd just like to put back the patio stone where it caved in from when the wall fell out. You could see from past pictures that I removed the dock, I removed the ramp, but took more trash out that the previous owner, they were just, as you guys know from other meetings, that over at least 2 dumpsters full of trash the guy had in the lake. Nothing has ever changed. I never added on. I never changed the work outside. The building inspector inspected the framing of the dock. He requested the Bigfoots for the supports. They're a part of it. My next door neighbor's the zoning board. I've had more eyes on this property, especially because of the amount of trash that I have removed from the lake. And so you guys have been very kind in allowing me to shore up the wall, strengthen the wall, finish the wall, get all the erosion controls down so that the grass took on the slope where the landscapers equipment wrecked the side of my yard. So there's no issues with erosion. And really the only thing left is just replacing some of the patio stone that was disturbed. So I guess a couple of things. It's hard for me to move forward on an NOI where I have to go through soil tests and elevations and everything else when I feel that it's not applicable to the scope of the job that's remaining. And so that's why I'm here with you guys. I'm respectfully requesting to waive the NOI, and if you need to do another enforcement order for the completion of the patio, I'll be more than happy to work with you regarding that matter.
Okay, so in short, you don't think you should need to submit an NOI?
I read through it and I honestly, it's all Greek to me, and I don't understand how it's applicable to what I just need to do to finish the job.
Okay, so I think it's applicable because you live on the lake and all of that land is jurisdictional and you need permission from us to do the work that you were doing. And I think the reason that we voted, I believe unanimously, to ask you to submit an NOI is it's pretty clear to us that the work you have already done and want to complete needs permission from us. And because it's not just a minor change, it's significant work within our jurisdiction, that a notice of intent is completely in keeping with what we ask homeowners to do, particularly homeowners on that lake where we're especially careful about work that goes on there.
No, I understand the reasons why you need to be very particular about the work that goes on there. I've followed all the rules from day one with the town, and I have not. So I don't understand, how this NOI is going to for what intent? Why is it needed? I really don't understand why it is needed for just putting back the patio stone.
Because any work within our jurisdiction needs permission from us, and we need to be able to look at the plans and make sure and that our consultants agree that it's being done the right way. Obviously, initially it was not being done the right way. Had you come through us and filed an NOI initially, we could have avoided those problems. And we need anybody doing any work within our jurisdiction to understand that it is required that you come through our commission to get approval for it. You might have a neighbor who's on the planning board. They look over a whole different set of criteria for work that needs to be done. And I know often the planning board will ask applicants in front of them, have you gone to the Conservation Commission to make sure that they're okay with what's going on? We're a different board from the planning board, and it's our job. We're required by the state and by the town to protect our jurisdictional areas. And part of that is when homeowners do work in those areas that they did not get permission for, we need to put a halt on it and then make sure that it's being done appropriately and that we are putting in the records the plans for that work and what we approved.
I understand, and I've been working with this since day one. There was a serious time crunch to get the work done before the lake water rose, and you guys did allow me to finish supporting the wall and finish that scope of work. And now it's just at this point where there's not much left to be done, and that's why I just felt like when I was reading through this NOI, I was like, I really don't feel it is a necessary step, also unnecessary costs and burden. I've already spent another $3,000 to apply out of over the estimate that I got for the work to the landscapers, and now and then on top of this, I have to hire surveyors, and I don't really know where to start, who to hire, what to do, like, and for what and why. When why do we need elevations? Why do we need? I just don't understand the purpose soil tests and everything else. I really honestly don't understand why it's necessary when nothing has changed on this property.
Well, I think a lot of changed. Things got taken apart, put together, taken apart again. Work was done that dug up the yard and potentially put materials into the lake because the yard was dug up. A whole lot was done, and it done right there on the edge of the lakefront, which we are assigned to protect. But maybe I'm missing something. I
mean, I did have you there for that reason, that I allowed, Judy's come over there quite a few times to see that making sure the work was done right. And, I was following to the terms of the enforcements. So I do.
But a key term of the enforcement is file an NOI. You've said you've done everything right, but you haven't, because you didn't ask for permission. And now that you've been given an enforcement order requiring you to file an NOI by a week ago, you haven't done that. So you're not actually doing everything we've asked.
I was willing to do it back then. I had no idea what it was. And then when I read through it, I'm like, this just doesn't feel like it's applicable to what's remaining.
Through the chair.
So let me just turn to other commission members, and maybe they can make it more clear than I've been able to. Was that Matt I heard first?
Yeah, Ted, that was Matt. You're correct. So we're not just talking about the work that's left to be done. It's also the work that has been done to date. We gave you permission to finish the wall and finish the work that needed to be done within an area that would be underwater once the lake rises, right? Because there was that time crunch. All of that work required a permit. So what we're asking for now in this enforcement order is for you to submit a notice of intent for the work that's been completed to date within jurisdiction, as well as the work that you still need to finish or would like to finish within our jurisdiction. There is, in my mind, no path forward other than filing a notice of intent that ultimately would get you an order of conditions for the work within our jurisdiction, particularly given that some of that work is a direct impact to jurisdictional areas and not just work within the buffer zone. So I understand there's a cost associated with that, but that's a cost that is part of this process and an expectation we as a commission have of every landowner within the town of Hopkinton that wants to do work within a resource area or within jurisdiction has to bear. And it's not us telling you to do the work. It was a choice to do the work, and the part of that process is getting approvals from all the boards in town that require a permit for said work. So I don't know if that helps to clarify what Ted was saying, trying to say it in a slightly different way.
Thank you.
Okay. I mean, I did send I had the property surveyed 5 years ago now by Mark Wadant, and did send that over today, part of it, the piece with that showed the, existing dock back then. Yeah, so I guess I guess I don't know. I'll let the rest of you finish, but still just still don't understand the need for this.
Through the chair.
honestly.
Yeah, please, Matt.
One more item, Ted. It sounds like there may be a confusion as to what you need to submit and what documents are required as part of this notice of intent application, like what that process is. I
Yes.
believe Mark Rodon's been in front of us on a number of occasions representing applicants. It may be worth reaching out to them or another firm that can support you in submitting this application package. It's consistent with the expectations of our regulations and the Wetlands Protection Act. That would probably be the best advice I could give you.
And if I may, also for clarification, although not the work that needs to be done in the paperwork, Anna and Judy are always there to answer questions, to clarify what is actually being asked for. And then with that clarification, you can go to Mr. Mark Wadant or whomever else is licensed and certified to do the work.
Okay. It's just
So-
it's very intimidating when, as a homeowner, you look at this thing and go, "Oh my God!" Like, it just
I can understand, but I am happy to say that we have folks in town that can help you get past the intimidation. They're just a phone call away. With that, we still have a violation discussion, commission members. The order required an NOI by June 11th. It is now June 17th. The order does say, and I've highlighted this section, submit to the Conservation Office all materials required for a complete NOI application by June 11th, 2025. Failure to comply with these actions may result in fines. So yes, it'll cost some money to put together the NOI. An additional complication is not putting together the NOI can cost some money as well, Mr. Holmes. It sounds like you are ready to start doing the work to get the NOI in. Am I hearing you correctly?
Yes, that is correct. And also, I haven't been here, so I've been dealing with the elderly parents down in Florida, and I have to go back down shortly to take care of them again. And I've literally been here for about 10 days, and I got to turn around and go back. And so it's been very difficult for me, but I definitely, I will definitely absolutely 100% move forward on this.
Can you give us a timeline that's reasonable given the other things you have going on? And I'm sorry to hear about the folks you're helping to take care of. But can you give us a realistic timeline?
What you guys would probably know better than I do is how long it usually takes for something like this. Is it you guys have a meeting on
Our
July
next meeting is
22nd,
July
August
1st.
5th? I'm looking
Our next meeting is July 1st.
July 1st. If
Through the chair.
I don't know if I could meet that, but if I show intent that I'm doing it and hired
Okay.
people and we're in the
Let me hear
process.
I think I heard Matt again. Let me hear what Matt has to say.
Yeah, no, that is exactly what I was going to say. I think from my perspective, if we have some signs of progress, right, that Mr. Holmes has reached out, he's engaged a third party to help him prepare a notice of intent application, that gives me enough comfort that we're moving forward and there's not inaction anymore. But I think that 2 weeks is plenty of time to at least engage someone to support that effort. And then once we know someone's engaged, we have a better idea of how long it's going to take to pull a package together, right? If we need to do a wetland delineation, sounds like there's already a survey, which is great. That's a big part of it. Now, those things take a little bit of time. And you really can't prepare the notice of intent filing until after you have that wetland delineation. So, realistically, we're a little ways out from receiving an NOI, but progress is I think ultimately what we're looking for.
Okay. Other commission members, I'm looking for reactions to what you're hearing and where Mr. Holmes says he's going to be going in the near future.
Through the chair, Ted. I
Yeah,
think that, I agree with where the conversation's going. I think that some sort of email correspondence should be sent to Judy indicating that the owner has signed up with an engineer or someone to take on the project. And I think that could happen pretty quickly, and that could provide some comfort to the commission that it's moving forward. And doing that within the date of, to issue fines, is that a 15-day window, Judy?
Yes. Yep. So every day without progress towards the enforcement order is a 300-day maximum fine.
Yeah, so it's been 6 days. So, if we can get that correspondence, I think within the next, before the 15 days is up, that would be helpful. That's just an email and getting somebody on board so you know what you're doing. Then we
so
wouldn't
that's,
have to issue these
think 15,
fines.
I think 15 days would mean June 26th.
Yeah.
So are you suggesting that we
That's-
hold
Oh,
any fines? I'm sorry?
you said June 26th?
I think
I'm
that's,
not asking for the NOI. I'm just asking for if you're gonna get an engineer on board, if you're gonna work with Mark Wadon, just
Yes,
get
I
an
definitely will.
email correspondence to
Yeah,
Judy.
I'll get on this right away. So now that I know it, a clear intent, and I do need to show that to you guys, and I'm gonna start it right away because I know this is gonna take some time to get everything together. So, but I will definitely
Well,
start it as soon
no,
as possible.
I think what I'm
And
hearing,
I'll let Judy know as well.
I think what I'm hearing is if we can get some documentation that significant forward progress is being made on an NOI by June 26th, which is also handily, nicely about a week before our next meeting, which will give us time to see what it is. Maybe some paperwork from, if it is Mark Wadon you're going to go to, maybe he can check in with Judy. So it's more than simply an email that says, hey, I called Mr. Mark Wadon. If we could hear something from him, that the wheels are in motion, I think that would make all of us feel a lot better.
Okay.
And then we could pick up the discussion again on July 1st. And assuming things are going in the right direction, we can talk about holding fines and abeyance. If things are not going in the right direction, it gets to be a different conversation.
I understand. Thank you very much for your time, guys.
Judy, do we need any kind of vote on that discussion?
Nope.
Nope. Commission members, does anyone have any final thoughts before we close this chat? Seems like a no. Hopefully Matt and Melissa and I captured your feelings well enough then. All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Holmes. Hopefully we see some good stuff in the next several days.
Okay. Again, thank you guys for all your time and everything you do for
All
our
right.
time. So you
You're
have a
welcome.
good evening.
Bye-bye.
All right. Bye.
We're almost there, everybody. Public forum requests. Do we have anything?
No, we do not.
We have nothing. Does anybody have any final thoughts besides a motion to adjourn? That looks like a no. I would love a motion and a second to adjourn this meeting at 10:13.
So moved.
Second.
Let's vote on it. Jim,
Aye.
Melissa,
Aye.
Janine,
Aye.
Heather,
Aye.
Matt,
Aye.
and Ted will make it anonymous. Thank you, everybody, for hanging in with Matt and me trying to run these things. Or Matt, thank you. Thank you for hanging in with me as I try to run these things.
You've been doing
Well
a spectacular job, Ted.
Well
Don't sell
done,
yourself
guys.
short.
Good night, everybody. Read a
Good
good
night.
book.
Good night, everyone.
Good
Yep.
night, everyone.
Aye.